Okay, I believe we're live. Welcome to the
Awesome.
Wrestling Animators podcast. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, so we're just pretty much gonna be getting set up, getting our links ready to start posting on our Discord and stuff. But yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself while I get set up.
Oh, sure. What's up, YouTube? It's theheartbreakcat / angusthecat316. Um, for those of you who don't know me, I don't blame you. You're not missing out. But I started animating back in, I want to say 2007. Um, and I stopped in at the end of 2014. And I'm Uh, I'm back to relive the glory days and chat with my number one rival, slash one half of the greatest tag team of all time.
Of all time. Yep.
Um, and
The better half of that
kind
tag
of talk
team,
about
might I add.
yeah, and talk about where I've been and where I'm going and stuff like that.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't know, who Angus the Cat, the Heartbreak Cat is. He's a longtime YouTuber. I've known him since the WFIGS days. For anyone who's been a part of that, I know a lot of you people are newer. In every live stream that we've had, we talk about WFIGS, but he's a longtime person. We're hitting the end of 2020 now, and I've known this guy since 2008, 2009. And it's been a journey,
Yeah,
and it's pretty much kind of coming back full circle. Also want to add, this is kind of face reveal for him. His first time on live stream, his first time, coming on for us, and yeah, and we're gonna see what he's been doing all these years.
yeah, yeah. No. To answer the first half of that, I looked it up before this started, and I was like, man, when was the first time that like we interacted on WrestleFigs? And our first match together was like early 2009,
Mhm.
um, and we've been we've had a love hate relationship on that form since.
Oh yeah.
One minute we're taking the titles from each other, and the next minute we're winning the titles together and
Mhm.
retiring each other, and
Mhm.
all that fun stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh man, just it's really going down memory lane. Um,
Yeah,
so basically, WFIGS is a competitive forum. Well, used to be a competitive forum where we would put animators against animators, and people would vote on which animation was best. And based off of that, we had titles that people were winning: tag titles, world title, high flyer, hardcore, all sorts of titles. And basically, just like in WWE's rivalries, and I think what kind of tag team would you compare us to? Would we be would we be Degeneration X, or who would you say we were most
I would say
alike
so.
to? Yeah.
I would say more of a DX vibe.
Mhm.
Um, especially with me as the Shawn Michaels role,
Mhm.
who's
Eh,
like who rarely wins the title, but like it's always the chase.
yeah. And
You
me
know?
as Triple H, pretty much always having the title,
Yeah,
and with
yeah,
that authority figure, to the
yeah,
forum as well. Pretty
yeah,
cool. Yeah, I mean, we pretty much we've had a lot of back and forth matches. We pretty much we main evented one Animania one year. What was it? I think like a three stages of hell, loser leaves W figs type of match.
yeah. Well, there was that one, and there was
Hmm.
also before that the triple threat main event with you,
Oh
me, and
yeah.
ECW original.
Ah, so we're double headers then.
Yeah,
Awesome. So as far as this Wrestling Animators podcast go, this is a second edition. Um and I'm pretty much going to be asking you a bunch of questions and just seeing where you've been. So I guess I'll just start
yeah,
with what got you into wrestling and animating.
sure. So In the first time I watched wrestling, I think at all, was like 2005. My brother was super into it, and um, although he wasn't even into it for that long, he kind of just like jumps from thing to thing, and so I would occasionally see him watching it, and I have a vague memory of seeing like Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero and their feud, and that started kind of pushing me into it, and then um, we had a local video store that was going out of business, and they had a ton of VHSs of Attitude Era pay-per-views. So, like pretty much everything from WrestleMania 14 to like Royal Rumble 2001.
Hmm.
So just like the height of the Attitude Era. And I bought a bunch of those VHSs for 50 cents a pop. And I would just like watch those things because they were just so good and so entertaining. And so it was like, even though I didn't live through that time period, that was like still the first thing that I was like really engrossed
Hmm.
in and exposed to. Um, so like I felt like a part of my childhood was still in the Attitude Era, even though it wasn't.
Hmm.
Um, and so by the time, I was getting obsessed with those tapes, Mick Foley had just come back. It was like 2006. And, here I was watching him, in these Attitude Era pay-per-views. And now I get to see him,
Hmm.
back having some great matches with
Oh
Edge
yeah.
and stuff. And it really just all kind of spiraled from there. And
Hmm.
I was just so into it. Um, as far as animation goes, because YouTube was still pretty fresh at that time, in 2006. Had only been around for, I think, like a year. And, like there was just something that was really cool about having a video sharing platform where, you could just look up wrestling stuff or
Hmm.
whatever you're interested in, and then you would get, random recommendations that were like related to that. And back in the days when YouTube gave you related recommendations, and one thing led to another, and you'd be watching like wrestling compilations, and then one would come up with like action figures, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting. And it would be like one of those where the dude just has a bunch of like tables set up, and he like throws his action figures at it or
Hmm.
whatever.
Oh yeah.
And like there's this one that comes to my mind where this dude, it just seems like he's at like a public park, like there's like picnic tables and stuff, and he's got like so many ladders and tables, and he keeps doing moves and stuff. And as a kid I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. But then eventually, of course, you'd get recommendations for like wrestling animations, and then that's of course when it was like,
Mm.
oh, okay, this is really cool.
Hmm.
And I mean, guys like Okano and
Oh
Paul,
yeah.
uh, which I mean is probably too dated for most people these days, I imagine.
Hmm.
But
I try and refresh them
those
on
animators,
the history of WFigs and a lot of the older animators.
yeah, I mean, and even though there have been many improvements and new techniques learned, I still go back to those sometimes, or at least I used to, because they just had such a drive for creativity, which I think really led into kind of that boom period where everyone really started to get into animations.
Hmm.
Especially Paul, where he wasn't focused on doing stuff that he saw on TV. He was just like, well, what can I just do?
Yeah.
Um, and it was just so cool to see like all of that creativity, and I was like, well, you know what? I can buy a $30 camera from a store and just try it out.
Hmm.
And that was kind of the early days. And most of those videos were deleted. I think I re-uploaded some on my secondary channel just to kind of humble myself a little, because I had so many people commenting at the time like, I'll never be as good, or like I've
Oh
been
yeah.
doing this for 3 months and I'll
Hmm.
never get good at it. And
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
dude, you don't know how long I've been doing this for. Here, let me
Yeah.
show you what it was like when I started,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah. That, I mean,
as
I do
as
the
a
exact same
motivational thing.
thing. Oh yeah.
Yeah, as because it's nice to remind people that you can get better and practice will make you better.
Hmm.
Um, and so where was I going with this? Anyway, so I had a really really bad cheap camera, And eventually I upgraded to a slightly better cheap camera that I used for the majority of my time. Um, yeah, and I kept going from there and getting like hardcore into wrestling. I would say from 2006 up until probably probably a little after like the Summer of Punk, the WWE version.
Yeah.
Um, I think around after that time, and like after Daniel Bryan had to retire the first time from injury, I think I think that's when I was kind of out for good. Well,
Mhm.
not for good, but like
Yeah.
as far as like a casual watcher. And after that, it was just the occasional WrestleMania.
It
Um,
pretty much sounds exactly like me too. Around that time, Daniel Bryan was retiring. Slowly and slowly, I started watching less shows and less shows, and just the
yeah,
WrestleManias.
yeah, and I've started watching a little bit of AEW and NXT. I still can't bring myself to like watch Raw or SmackDown,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that the compromise that's been working for me is, have on Wednesdays flip back and forth between NXT and
Mm-hmm.
AEW,
Okay.
and that's, I can do that 2 hours.
Uh-huh.
you know, um, I can't do the 10 plus hours of all
Mm-hmm.
wrestling anymore,
Oh yeah.
but and even then, I might not be completely invested. There might be matches where it's like, okay, I'm going to be on my phone for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But there are definitely current wrestlers who I'm into and hope the best for and stuff like that. I'm not someone who's tied to the ideology that things will never be better than the period that I grew up on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of, I think, a common mentality of
Oh yeah.
whatever's most nostalgic to you is the
Mm-hmm.
best era of wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, like I've
you know,
actually in the last couple of days I've been rewatching a lot of the 2007 content on the WWE Network, and that's what I'm nostalgia for. But man, is it good! Watching the final two Undertaker and Shawn Michaels in the Royal Rumble, and just the back and forth they
yeah,
had. That's something that I mean, yeah, that was the greatest ending to a Royal Rumble that I think that they've ever had, and to this day I think it still stands. But even just the following show, I just watched it last night. John Cena and Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker and Batista in a tag team match. That's just one of those matchups that these all four of these guys are in their prime, having a random tag team match on the main event of a pay per view. This is awesome,
yeah,
and there's just like a lot of that
yeah,
that feeling of nostalgia going back and rewatching all those, and I could see that same sense of this is the greatest era in wrestling, but at the same time, I gotta say all that NXT stuff, like going past 2015 and all that I did miss out on, that I'm actually starting to catch up now. That stuff is so gold, also amazing.
yeah. Yeah, while I still had the network, I tried to see like how much I could binge watch from like the beginning of NXT.
Mm-hmm.
And I got pretty far before
Mm-hmm.
I lost the network, but like there's so much great content,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be interested in coming back to it one of these days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and and like you were saying, I revisited some old wrestling too. Well, not old, but like 2007 era,
Mm-hmm.
and I found a match that I remembered as a kid. It was a random throwaway match on Raw between Shawn Michaels and Jeff Hardy,
Mm-hmm.
which I remember watching live, and at the time being like, these are literally two of my favorite wrestlers, and they've never fought before, and we're just
Yeah.
casually getting it on Raw. Like,
Yeah.
how cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And the match was only like 10 minutes long, but it was just so cool to me,
Mm-hmm.
that I got to see like two of my favorites, go at it for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100% agree. Like I think that's why things like watching that tag match from No Way Out in 2007 is like we never really got Undertaker and John Cena in their prime
Yeah,
fighting, and
yeah,
that was like the only match, tag team match, granted, but that was like the only match they had. The only other match they had, one match on Raw in 2006, but I forgot how it ended, but it was very short and it just kind of ended anticlimactically. Um, but yeah, I
right.
mean, seeing two of some of my favorites and those dream matchups that they really should have capitalized on. That I think.
Yeah. And you think about like at that time, they were they were so good at the brand split that we actually missed out on
Uh-huh.
some matches because of, like, how well they'd be able to keep people away from each other until
Mhm.
the time is right.
Mhm.
Um, which you don't really get as much of today.
Mhm.
Um, and there's not really a match that hasn't happened twice.
Yeah.
Um, for better or worse. That's kind of the pros and the cons. Is you get all of your dream matches,
Mhm.
but
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah, for sure. Um,
except for
yeah.
Sting and Undertaker. But
Oh yeah, that one. How long? So how long have you been animating?
yeah, so I can't exactly pinpoint when I first started messing with the camera, but I'll
Mhm.
just say sometime in 2007.
Mhm.
I know I didn't join WrestleFigs until like late 2008 during
Mhm.
like the Jed's World era.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I had stopped wrestling animating summer of 14, and I made my last animation of anything. Um, I think like December or November of 2014. I'd made like a really short Captain America animation
Mhm.
for a college class,
Mhm.
um, because the assignment was it was a public speaking class, and the assignment was like do a tutorial on something, and I was like, man, I don't I don't know how to do things. Like, what do I
Yeah.
know how to do? And I was like, well, you could do a wrestling animation thing, and I was like, it is something I know how to do. All right,
Yeah.
because I was like, what am I going to teach people how to do? You
Mhm.
had you had people come in like do demonstrations on how to like change diapers and stuff,
Uh-huh.
and I just came in with like two action figures and some string,
Nice.
and like I hooked up a camera to a projector and stuff, and I was like, and this is really the first impression I'm making on in college. Great.
What
But
kind of impression did it leave?
uh, that's the thing. It didn't like like no,
No one cared. It's what you're
nobody
telling me.
cares, right? Like
Yeah.
you think everything is life or death
They
in
they didn't
school,
they didn't
and
get
it
anything
it
out of that
really
one, but some people learned how to change
no,
diapers that day.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I think I can't remember a single reaction, so I think that pretty much sums it up. But
Mhm.
honestly, that was I. At the time, you're like, oh, people are gonna make fun of me or whatever.
Mhm.
But then it just kind of hit a point where I was like, who cares? Like,
Mhm.
I'm not going to see half these people after this class,
Yeah.
so whatever.
Mhm.
Which is kind of like a general college attitude my first 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Um, so I want to know, so why the username? You have the Heartbreak Cat and you have Angus the Cat
Sure.
316.
Yeah, so angusthecat316 came first. Um, at the time I created a YouTube, I did want to be like anonymous in a way.
Mhm.
Um, And so, and like usually if I ever had like a username for something, it would be like Gamer J or something.
Mhm.
And I just hated how generic that was as I got older.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, I was like, that could be anyone. I was like, what's something that's more unique to me? And of course, I had a cat named Angus who was awesome. And
Mhm.
Stone Cold Steve Austin was my favorite wrestler at the time. So I was like,
Mhm.
all right, we're doing this. You
Mhm.
know, um, and then it kind of just took on a life of its own, especially on WrestleFigs,
Mhm.
where it kind of became a gimmick in a
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, and like even there's a banter board on WrestleFigs where
Mhm.
you can just kind of shit post and do whatever you want.
Mhm.
And there was like this thing that was developing where this other member on that forum like took Meowth as like their persona, and
Mhm.
like there was just a group of us, and so we kind of had like this four horsemen gimmick going.
Mm.
um, and so it kind of like took a life of its own, and I'd have like profile pictures where it would be like the four horsemen, but with like Angus's face
Yeah.
photoshopped over, and it was
I
just
remember
kind of like
seeing all that.
lighthearted.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was just kind of like lighthearted stuff, and I liked that it had a layer of anonymity, and at the time too, cats were just like really internet popular,
Oh yeah.
you know, where it
Mhm.
was like if you had a cat on the internet, like that was like the way to fame.
Yeah, you were
And
in
so
there.
like if I was going to be known for something, you know, I might as well have it be my cat, you know, who I
Mhm.
love dearly.
Mhm.
Um, so it just kind of worked out there. And then when I was making a secondary channel, I remembered that, you know, on WrestleFigs when I would be, you know, typing up promos and stuff and all
Mhm.
that, you know, I'd call myself the Heartbreak Cat just as
Mhm.
kind of, you know, part of that gimmick.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, let's do that. You know,
Yeah,
Sean's my
definitely
second
works.
favorite.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so that's kind of how it came about.
Okay. And I'm assuming Stone Cold's your first favorite?
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
You
was.
know, the list has kind of rearranged over the years
Mhm.
with different people. I mean, he's still up there for sure.
Mhm.
I think Sean's kind of number one at this point, just as
Mhm.
far as career
Oh
retrospective,
yeah. Mhm.
and just I mean, he has so many more years under his belt,
Mhm.
and you know, just his ability to put on like 5-star matches with anyone, you
And
know, was just
that's literally how I
impeccable.
feel about Johnny Gargano and Daniel Bryan, which are my
Yeah,
top 3. Them 2 and Shawn Michaels. Those are my
yeah.
top 3. Mhm.
The fact that we never got Daniel Bryan versus Shawn Michaels
Yeah.
is
Oh
like
man.
that's the one that gets me more than like
Uh-huh.
Undertaker and
Oh,
Sting or whatever.
100%. 100%.
Like that just would have been so good.
Mhm. So which of your videos is your favorite?
I think there's kind of like two categories to this. There's like
Mhm.
the one that makes me feel the most accomplished versus like the one that I just enjoy the most.
Mhm.
You know, as far as like accomplishment goes, my Royal Rumble videos, I think I feel the best about just because, you know, I had a really ambitious goal and I accomplished it
Mhm.
and it was well received and it got a lot of views. And, you know, I looked over them recently just to see it, you know, oh God, I haven't looked at these videos in years.
Mhm.
And, you know, there would be some comments like, oh, I used to love this video as a kid, or, you know,
Mhm.
like random comments from like two
Yeah.
months ago. And then the rest are like from, you know, 5 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And it would just be super cool to know that I've had that kind of effect on someone.
Mhm.
Um, you know, perhaps in a similar way to, you know, when we'd watch, you know, Paul compilations
Yep.
or Okano or Hardy Boys WWE or
Mhm.
Steve-O or any of those guys.
Mhm.
And, you know, if we ever randomly watch those videos again, to say like, oh yeah, this really had an impact on me, or, you
Mhm.
know, this brings back memories.
Mhm.
It's nice to hit the other side of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Wilson, what would be the hardest video to make then? Would it have been the Royal Rumble?
Probably. I think yeah, because I always love Royal Rumbles that just get filled, you
Mhm.
know, and there's just mayhem and chaos, you know, because kind of there was like this like 4 year span where a lot of Royal Rumbles were just like constantly two or three people in the
Oh
ring at
yeah.
once.
Yeah.
And, you know, as an animator, like that's definitely the easier way out, you know.
Mhm.
But I really wanted to make like a chaotic and, you know, full ring kind of style match.
Yeah.
And so between every frame to have to pay attention to what
Mhm.
every single person is doing,
Yep.
like is super, super ambitious.
Mhm.
And you know, I'm sure there are moments where it's like, okay, I forgot about that guy. You know, but
Yeah.
you know, I'd at least do the WWE thing where like, okay, clearly these two guys are doing something in the corner, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because even that's realistic, you know,
Mhm.
where you know you watch a Royal Rumble and two guys are like, well, I don't have any spots coming up, so I'm just gonna
Mhm.
like choke this guy in the corner
Yeah.
or
Yep.
have this guy like lifted on the rope or
Uh-huh.
whatever. So that was definitely the most challenging. To go back to as far as like favorite goes, I think like my wrestling animation compilations themselves,
Mhm.
especially like the middle two of the series,
Mhm.
I think the next chapter and Ready to Fall.
Love Ready to Fall.
Um, yeah, like I think Ready to Fall is by far like the most popular one. Like that one
Mhm.
has just way more views than anything else.
Mhm.
but those two in particular, like, were really highlighted, like, when I was not at my peak, but just as far as, like, a work rate goes, where I was just constantly animating
Mm,
and, participating and challenging myself and being motivated by those around me. We
mm-hmm.
had so many talented people at the time, yourself, Steve-O, etc., where it was like, I need to keep doing this and get better and like really like, oh man, I tied in votes with this person. Like I just have to keep
Mm-hmm.
going. And it was really a motivating thing. It wasn't something where it was like, well, I'm not better than them, so I quit,
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so it really was a time where, I'm a big believer, especially with artistic stuff, that who you surround yourself with is going to impact you as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And if you only play it safe and go to a place where you're the biggest fish in the pond, you're not going to grow. you know
Mm-hmm.
but if you go to a place where you're the smallest fish in the pond, you have not only all this inspiration but also motivation, to, all right, well, I gotta keep going, and watch and learn and all these things, um, which I think is, a humbling process to admit to,
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
nobody likes to be at the bottom of the pecking order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, pretty much 100% agree on that one. I mean, when I joined WFigs as well, I was that's that small fish as well, and pretty much all of
Yeah,
us were, and we all had that chance to just grow together. And that's what I feel like a lot of the things with that community and what we could make in this community now is that when we grew as animators, we grew as friends and we grew as family. And we pretty much, I mean, all of us, we're here now, like 7 8 years later, and still
yeah.
talking about this. And that's pretty much kind of like the bond that everyone else had back then. But I just think that's
Yeah, I
awesome.
mean, especially because, so many of us, being wrestling fans and not being in the 90s,
Mhm.
wrestling's just not as accepted,
Mhm.
or popular or whatever. I mean, now it kind of has a different aesthetic because like of the PG based, and
Yeah.
you can have it on your backpack or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever's going on these days. But kind of at our time, it was this weird,
Oh yeah.
awkward in between era.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
like you couldn't really, like, maybe you had a couple friends who liked wrestling, but
Mhm.
like, that would be something you'd get picked on,
Yeah, I
for
I couldn't I
instance.
couldn't have a
Um,
WWE shirt without that giant authorized logo on the bottom and having someone say something about it back in middle
right,
school and
right, yeah. Um, and yeah, so to have a community online that, we're all super enthusiastic about something is just super cool.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think this could be the perfect segue to kind of plug the Wrestling Animators Discord that that I've been, kind of running the last 3 months. Trying to get everyone kind of back on board with, we all share this common interest. I'm sure if you're watching the video now, if you're watching any of my animations, Angus animations, and there's people who share those interests just like you. And this is probably the place to kind of share that if anyone wants to pretty much join. Links will be in the description. Wrestling Animators Discord. You do need a Discord account, but I think it's a cool community, and hopefully we kind of just grow like we used to.
Yeah. Um, Real quick, do you have a link for this that I can kind of do a
For
little
the
shout out for
Discord, right?
the Discord and for this live?
So if you check on my Twitter, I should have the link, or I could just send it to you. I got the links for you. That's the animation Discord. Hold on, let me actually send it to you. Discord. That's the animation Discord link. And then this video live stream brought to you by Loser Kings 007. Here's a live channel, a live video as we're going. There it is.
Awesome, thank you. Maybe maybe it will do that thing where if you have an account that hasn't posted in years, it'll actually give a notification if they do something where it's like this person hasn't acted in a while.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
Because
true.
I haven't made anything on my channel, you know. I still use the Heartbreak Cat for like general casual, you know,
Yeah.
stuff. If I'm you know, saving funny videos or whatever, that's usually the account I'll do it through. Honestly, I think I lost the password
Uh-oh.
for angusthecat316. I'm not like worried
Yeah.
because I can always just password recover or whatever, but I think I
Yeah.
just kind of, you know,
Been so long, huh?
yeah, it really has.
Yeah, for me, I pretty much keep up with my subscriptions on my secondary channel as well. I mean, it would be pretty crazy to kind of check out my Loser King 007 subscription, seeing what all the animators I subscribed to back then, seeing if any of them are still posting. Because I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
them stopped posting animation; they just, I don't know, post other videos.
yeah, yeah. I've always kind of been under the mentality of like, oh, well, if you ever were to like do something else, you know, would you go back to one of those channels?
hmm
And I feel like I feel like I couldn't just
hmm
because, you know, it feels like unless it was literally coming back to animate, like
hmm
I would rather just start a new channel and, you know, not try to, you know, if I'm doing something wildly different, then chances are whatever audience I had left wouldn't be interested in that
Yeah.
anyway.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know.
I wanted to ask, so what camera did you use, and what kind of editing programs were you using?
I don't have either of my cameras with me at my apartment. I
Mhm.
think I know where they are at my parents', but
Yeah.
I had like, I mean, they were just these little rectangle things
hmm
that you could get from like, you know, wherever for probably under $100.
hmm
Um, and I had one that kind of broke after a while, and then I switched to another one.
hmm
Um, yeah, I can't remember like the brand name or anything. Um, I mean, they weren't really anything special. I wouldn't, you know, be like, you know, this brand, go get this one, you know.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, you know, nothing crazy. They were just kind of regular run of the mill, cheap end cameras. I had like a really short tripod
hmm
that could extend a little bit. And, you know, I just kind of, oh, as far as editing programs, what's that? What Jask? Was that Jask animation something? Wasn't
Um,
that a
I'm
thing?
I'm not sure about that one. It's
I think that was one of the ones I used for like GIFs and stuff.
okay.
Um, but then of course, as far as like YouTube videos, Windows Movie Maker,
Yeah. Yeah,
I didn't have any of like the cool boy programs.
we were from that era. I think a lot of people nowadays, they have like mobile apps that they could just make stop motion with. Like there's actually stop motion mobile apps and free
I believe
nonetheless.
it.
Yeah, that's what I think what a lot of the animators use right now. I'm
Yeah, I think
currently
if I ever
using
were to come back, that
uh
would probably be
oh yeah.
what I use.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy, it's simple, I think. I'm currently using Dragon Frame right now. It's something that I
Okay.
wanted to invest in earlier this year. Um, it's like a $300 program, and you also get like a little wireless controller to take pictures with without
Oh,
having to touch the camera, so I don't have to keep bumping into it. You
that's
plug
super cool.
I plug my DSLR via USB onto my computer, and
Mhm.
pretty much from there. And that's actually my animation setup right there. That's the new
Oh, nice.
arena. I don't know if you've seen anything because I haven't posted any videos uh using that arena yet. Just kind of
Yeah,
a couple of
I
things.
don't think I have.
Yeah, it's new. It's for the new show I'm making, Mystery Vortex. So basically, it's the
Okay.
same name as a PWG show, which is Mystery Vortex. But the gimmick, I guess, of that show is you don't know the match card. Like, and I've been to this Mystery Vortex in person before, and it's really cool. It's really different to go to a wrestling show, not know who's on the card, and you don't actually know what the match is until everyone's in the ring and they say it's this versus this person. So I kind of want to do that in
Yeah.
an animation sense, where I don't want to tell anyone what the card is or show people the matches until they come in and they watch the video and they say, "Oh, this guy's fighting this guy," not like they were anticipating a certain match. And I have a couple of surprises
Yeah.
for that card. I have a lot of ideas floating, and it's pretty much gonna be my first show since, oh man, Extreme Chaos. I uh I started the King of the Ring, but
Sure.
I only did one match and the Battle Royale. But this is a show I actually
Yeah.
want to take the time to make. It's gonna take a long time, but my idea is if I could just chip away at it and do little by little, that I could probably do a show a year instead of like really pushing it much sooner than that. So that's pretty much my goals for right now.
Yeah.
A lot of things that I'm thinking of, like I
I
mean,
think
these
we
are
all
all
have
long
that.
term. Yeah, it's pretty much all long term.
Yeah, we all have that one show, Extreme Chaos, etc., where it was like the last one, and it's unfinished or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like there's like a part of like shame. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know about you, but like for me
Oh
personally,
yeah.
like for No Escape, where you know there's a time in your life when you just have a ton of time to animate and you're on top of the world, and then
Mm-hmm.
as soon as life starts happening and you can't produce as much as you used to, and you get all
Mm-hmm.
the comments, of where
Mm-hmm.
the hell is this, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Yeah. I mean,
we all have that.
oh, pretty much. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how I did it. Path of Destruction entire show made in 1 month. Entire show. 5 matches right there.
Yeah,
Episode 1 of LKS, which I mean there's only one episode, but those 3 matches all done within 3 weeks as well. And then it
yeah,
was once I started doing the Battle Royale, that one match took me 1 month. And I was like, okay, things are starting to slow down. And then the next match, Triple Threat, took me 2 or 3 months. Um, and then it just got longer and longer after that. And once I finally was going to hit part 4, it was literally part 4 out of 4, and it ended being a part 4 out of 5. And it took another year before, or 2 years maybe, even until Extreme Chaos Part 5 actually came out, and I actually finished it.
yeah.
So,
I
oh,
I think I now that you're saying that, I think I remember, because this would have been that final part would have came out after I left.
hmm
I think I remember getting a notification for it and being like, "Wizard Kings is still make." Oh, and I remember watching it and
hmm
being like, "Oh, that's cool. He's still active."
yeah,
Um,
that's
because
I will
you never
consider that
know.
to be like my last video too. It really was the end of an era for me, because around
Yeah,
that time, um, that was when my we were moving houses. That was the end of my WWE contract, and it was a month before I actually got a job outside of outside of my house, working at a McDonald's. But that was the last video in my life where I was focusing only on animation. And I wanted to make sure it was like that one video that I never finished and I finally finished. Um, yeah, I mean it really was. I mean, I even posted like an end of an era video. Like, it's not the end forever, guys. I'm not gonna be that person, but honestly now I look 5 years later, it kind of was the end, posted some single animations after that, but I haven't made a single match since then.
yeah,
And I want to get back into it though, and it's not I'm not gonna have the views as before, and I'm not gonna have whatever traffic that I had before. But the thing is, it's something that I love to do, and every time I look back at my videos, I get that sense of nostalgia. Like, wow, I made that. I want to make it so I can watch it, again, and watch it 5 years from now and all that. So that's kind of why I want to make animation again, just to so I can feel that sense of making that video that of content that I something I could be proud of too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've had little bits of kind of, those sparks of like, man, I'm kind of really in the mood to animate. But any any of those that I've had like here and there over the years have always been outside of wrestling. Like I'll be, at for long story short, for a summer I was a prop designer
Mm.
and we were making these like cool kind of like flower bed things out of foam and all these other, and all I could think about is how much I just wish I had like miniature figures and like could make a whole environment and like animate like a story of something,
Yeah.
and so like a lot of my inspirations that have like those fleeting little bits that have come here and there have always been more in that realm. Of course, now that I've been spending the last few days like catching up at stuff, it's like, okay, well, now I kind of wish I could make an animation or two. Whether or not it can happen is another thing. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, I feel like I've, for the most part, moved past it in the sense that I still have a strong heart for animating, and I love watching it. I love the art form so much, and the few occasions that movies still do it,
Mm-hmm.
I love it, and I always want to support it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if I were to ever come back, it would be in more of a narrative sense and more of a something outside of wrestling.
Yeah.
Like that requires so much design and building elements and all these other what would I use,
Mm-hmm.
and then at that point it's like, okay, well, I clearly don't have the time for that.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Um, so when you were animating, back a few years back, like what kind of PC setup did you have?
Oh god. uh, I guess similar answer to the camera, something affordable and not the best. I mean, it was like Windows 2000 or something.
Oh,
It
oh.
was I don't even I can't even remember exactly what it was,
Mm-hmm.
because for the most part I was just like using like my parents' desktop.
Okay.
Um, and then like towards the end of my run, I did have a laptop of my own. Um, but yeah, because even when I did have a laptop, um, it just a lot of the stuff wasn't compatible or whatever, and so it just kind of, yeah, I was super in the Stone Age with a lot of what
Mm-hmm.
I was using.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I was just using my parents' desktop for a while too, until
Yeah,
I got my laptop, which was just equivalent or less than whatever the desktop was as well.
yeah.
Did you have a favorite figure to animate with?
I I definitely have an answer for towards the end of my run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Mattel Elite Evan Bourne,
The green one,
with the
right?
green tights.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it could move like so perfectly, and
Mm-hmm.
like I think we all just like at any given moment we just have that one figure where it's like, oh, its joints are perfect and
Mm-hmm.
it gets the movements right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a lot of people it was like that deluxe aggression Paul London.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think for a lot of us it was that
Mm-hmm.
figure for a while too, myself included, where it was
Mm-hmm.
just like something about the legs that came with,
Mm-hmm.
and like
Oh
all these
yeah.
other things. Um, I had a ruthless aggression Chris Jericho that just like had really good like joints and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
like its legs were like just far apart enough that
Mm-hmm.
it could do like hurricanranas and
Oh
power
yeah.
bombs, and I think those definitely come to mind. But I'm sure there are other ones too. But I love this question just because it really is relatable to all of us
Oh
wrestling
yeah.
animators. Like
Yeah. We all have
you
that
can watch,
figure.
yeah, you can watch anyone's compilations and you can see like, oh, that was their figure,
What do you
like
what do you
like
think was my figure?
I need to go back and watch all of your
Mhm.
compilations.
Mhm.
I've been like in crash course the past
Mhm.
few days, like just
Mhm.
catching up with what I even did
Mhm.
and watching a few things from other people.
Mhm.
I know your Shawn Michaels Deluxe Aggression,
Oh yeah.
your classic one.
Mhm.
That one was like really popular choice of yours. Um, in the Mattel era, I'm a little less familiar just because I wasn't watching as much from
I
anyone
I
during
think
that
I
time.
think my Tyson kid is what I used a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That rings a bell,
I
huh?
can even 'cause, like even remember and I only remember, when I say remember, it's because I looked it up recently. I have terrible memory. That's
Mhm.
part of
Mhm.
that's a whole nother thing. But
Mhm.
like even in like the old Okano videos,
Yeah.
he had that like custom Jack Evans figure, if
Mhm.
you remember, that like during the later half of like
Yeah.
his anime, was like in every single one of his
Yeah.
animations,
Mhm.
you know. And Paul had like that Tommy Dreamer
Oh
figure with like
yeah.
the Matt Hardy legs.
Mhm.
Like we all have that figure. Um, and I love that little quirk
Mhm.
about us.
Mhm. Yeah, I think like that was kind of the theme for my best in the world 6 or 7. Oh man, I forgot already. My HD 130 that I had made about a month ago, month and a half ago maybe. I used 6 figures and like in all my best in the world animations, they were kind of long, sequences of moves and with many figures. The 6 figures I specifically chose was kind of a nod of old figures I used and new figures that I have. So they were all Mattel, but I had my Yoshitatsu, my Evan Bohr, and my Tyson Kid, the 3 classics,
Yeah,
and then combining that with
yeah,
oh no, I think I also had John Morrison in there, and then combining that with like I had the new Seth Rollins, I had an AJ Styles, Adrian Neville, so like a lot of the newer figures that I didn't have back when I was actually animating. So that was kind of like the theme with that animation that I made. Even though it's like not super obvious, it's
yeah.
just kind of the thought process.
Even when you had the Deluxe Aggression, John Morrison instead of the Elite one,
Yep, yeah.
like I remember using that one a ton too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
Oh, definitely. Oh man, the deluxe aggression figures though. I really should just bring them out and animate with them again.
but they were also like super hit or miss.
Yeah.
Like they were either like really, really good for animating or like they were just like really awkward.
Yeah.
Like a lot of like the Undertaker figures, for
Oh yeah.
instance, or like anyone with like longer legs or whatever
Mhm.
whatever like boot molds they
Mhm.
had or
Mhm.
whatever, like that whole deal was.
Mhm.
Like there were a bunch where it was like these are just so awkward to move around.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, it's also kind of crazy. Like my ECW match was done with I guess my most popular match was done with both Ruthless Aggression figures, Mick Foley and Sabu. But I think
yeah,
in like that case it just worked surprisingly. Um Even more so than like even some of my Deluxe Aggression or Mattel figures really. I think it just really depends on like the wrestler and stuff. Like the Mick Foley ones are just so good, because they could move the way he would move, I guess, in a sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think one of the most enjoyable matches I got to make was I had a Mick Foley versus Al Snow match.
Mhm.
That was like hardcore rules and everything, and they went
Mhm.
backstage. And
Mhm.
that was really fun because I really felt like both figures, like just kind of like you were saying, moved in the way of their wrestlers.
Mhm.
And like my Al Snow figure kind of had this weird issue with its hip.
Mhm.
And so like its moonsaults were like more inclined to like kind of lean a direction,
Mhm.
which is exactly how he used to do his moonsaults.
Yeah.
Um, so it worked really fittingly.
Mhm. Um, do you still watch wrestling?
Just a little bit of AEW and
Mhm.
NXT on Wednesdays. I
Mhm.
kind of will have them both on and flip
Yeah.
between the two.
Okay.
Um, I also still try to watch WrestleMania every year, and
Yeah.
usually the Royal Rumble if I can.
Mhm.
Um, if I have another throwaway email, I can
Mhm. Yeah.
get a trial for.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, I mean, I'll probably do the same for next year as well. But I haven't really seen any pay-per-views as of recently.
Mm.
And I really haven't seen any Raw or SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
Although now that Keith Lee's on Raw, I guess I have to
Yeah.
start checking that out a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a huge Keith Lee fan.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Oh, same here. Yeah, I think like for me, because we kind of exited around the same time as far as watching wrestling. There's so much that I missed, but I kept up with at least watched Royal Rumbles and WrestleMania, and now that this year had started, I really wanted to start getting back into it. I started getting reminded of what I used to love, and getting back into my animations, getting back into wrestling, trying to keep up with it. I don't watch Raw or SmackDown unless I hear something like really good happen. Like I did
right,
watch like Matt Riddle versus AJ Styles. That was awesome from a SmackDown, and also Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles. That's actually my favorite match of this year so far, from a SmackDown
yeah.
as well. They had like what, like a 40-45 minute classic SmackDown. It was awesome. Um
It was like one of the major benefits of quarantine, where it was
yeah.
like, oh, we're stuck with these wrestlers.
Mhm.
Because you remember that I forgot what happened, but back in like 2007, there was that whole deal where like the match card for Raw was supposed to be like a double main event where it was like
Mhm.
Edge versus Orton and Cena
Mhm.
versus Michaels.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, like Edge and Orton couldn't make it or something, so they
Yeah, I
just
remember
let
that.
Cena and,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that was yeah,
yeah,
for the it was the show in England. They had
yeah,
their 1 hour 1 hour match to the time limit, or at
it
least
was
something close to
no
that.
Sean won.
He won, so it was right before the time limit then, because their match went almost an
Yeah,
hour. It went almost to the time
yeah,
limit.
it
I'd
was
see
so good. It
again,
was so good.
2007. That
Yeah,
that big that was like the first year of me watching wrestling for the most
yeah,
part. That was awesome. But yeah, like as
yeah.
far as like
Like
just this year, I've just I wanted to actually start watching all the wrestling pay-per-views again. So I've been watching I don't watch Raw, SmackDown, and again I also do the occasional AEW and NXT when I hear certain things happen, only because of time really. Um
yeah.
but like I've been watching every pay-per-view, every NXT show, the AEW pay-per-view they had in like May, I think. Um and it's been fun. Like I'm not going into it expecting to have my mind blown. I'm going in there just seeing what's going on now and enjoying the wrestlers, and pretty much just having fun with the show, and it's been good.
Yeah.
Like Money in the Bank, actually, like maybe not the show as a whole, but that Money in the Bank like cinematic match they had, that was so fun. Did you see that one? I don't know if you
I I saw like highlights of it.
yeah.
Um, like sometimes, like after a pay-per-view, I'll watch one of those
Hmm.
like really crappy
Yeah.
YouTube highlight videos where I don't know what I think it's like must be like
It's
automated in some
yeah.
way, but like
Yeah.
there's this rising trend in highlight videos that are
Hmm.
just like random cuts. Just
Yeah.
it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like, oh, here's 5 seconds here. And like there's no rhyme or reason. Like a
Yeah.
big move's about to happen and it'll just cut to them laying on the
Hmm.
ground or
Hmm.
whatever, and
Hmm.
it's so frustrating,
Uh-oh.
but like sometimes that will be the only
Yeah.
bit I get of a pay-per-view.
Yeah, that Money in the Bank, it's the most ridiculous thing I feel like we've seen in a long time, but it just worked. It's literally just having the women's Money in the Bank happen at the exact same time as the men's Money in the Bank, but they start on the first floor, but the ladder's on the top floor, so they're making their way up there. It's so ridiculous on paper, but for 45 minutes I couldn't stop smiling. It was so good.
Yeah,
And same with I know
you know,
a lot of people didn't like it from what I seen online, but the Street Profits versus the Viking Raiders, they were supposed to have a match at a pay-per-view. I think maybe Extreme Rules or Backlash. Might have been Backlash actually. Um, and instead of having a match, they started, attacking each other backstage, and you think it would be like a little segment to lead into their match, but no, it was a full like 10 minutes of them brawling outside with a bunch of like flashbacks to them hanging out, and it ends up with them being in a parking lot when they get assaulted by ninjas that roll up on motorcycles,
oh, and
and
the trash can or
it ends
whatever.
with the trash can. I just thought it was again one of those moments where it's like I didn't expect that, but I was thoroughly entertained and I was smiling the whole time, and so I loved it, and
Yeah,
that's why I loved it. um And of course, seeing Akira Tozawa there, because he's also one of my favorites from Dragon Gate and back in the day. So that was a cool nostalgia factor for me in there. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's been
and
cool.
stuff like that. You
Hmm.
know, like I'll see stuff like that, especially with the Money in the Bank,
Hmm.
and I'll be like, man, you know, 10-year-old me would have gone insane over this. Like, I
Hmm.
would have been like, I have to do this with my action figures
Hmm.
right now, you know,
Hmm.
because like that's some action figure bullshit
Oh
where
yeah.
you make up like
Oh,
the stupidest match
100%. Yeah.
types of like oh you whoever whichever wrestler makes it up the stairs of the house or whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh man.
Um,
I got stairs now. Now I could do that.
Yeah, just the create,
Hmm.
and seeing something that's pretty much the equivalent of that on TV is very entertaining,
Hmm.
especially if you still have that suspension of disbelief that you get as a kid.
Hmm.
When now these days you're like, okay, well that was kind of dumb,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just that magic. I'm like, oh man, young me would have loved that.
Yeah, I mean, oh, they'll be doing some crazy stuff like well, for one, on the Money in the Bank, I'm pretty sure they threw someone off the roof of it. So that was one thing.
Yes.
And also what the eye for an eye match, Seth Rollins and Rey
Yeah, and it
Mysterio.
was.
I didn't know what to
I was
expect
about
going
to say it was
into
Rey
it.
Mysterio the whole time.
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
I was like, why do I was like, I was like something going on where like Ray kept saying like his contract was up and then he would keep renewing it because like they threw him off a roof to write him off TV,
Uh-huh.
and then he came back and then they gouged out his eye to write him off
Well,
TV, and now he's back
he came
again.
back to retire, and then and then gouge his
That's what I
eye
mean. Like I
out.
feel like they
It's
keep writing him off, and then they find out, oh, he still has some time in his contract.
yeah, it's been weird. It's definitely been weird, but like at the same time, I go into those matches like, what am I gonna watch right now? And I come out, like, yeah, I was entertained, and I think that's
Yeah,
kind of just the goal. Is just to have fun with the wrestling, as much as they
yeah,
can. They have their competitive and crazy matches like that, and other promotions or NXT, and they want to do something weird and over the top, then they 100% should just go for it. I think.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite match? Because you said Shawn Michaels your favorite wrestler, but do you have a favorite match?
Honestly, I think my favorite match is WrestleMania 21, Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels.
Mm,
It's just like, as far as like pacing and and like in-ring chemistry, and
yeah.
like they didn't overstay their welcome. Like everything was like just like perfectly followed, everything, like, but it all, none of it felt choreographed. It was just like,
Mhm.
it just felt very like the perfect combination of like sports entertainment and
Mhm.
like pro wrestling,
Mhm.
um, between the two guys that have both been like the perfect representation of finding that perfect line between legitimacy and
Mhm.
entertainment.
Yeah.
um, and it's just one of those things where it's like, I know it's not Punk Joe or whatever, but like
Mhm.
it's just, it flows together so perfectly for me.
Mhm.
And it has the drama, it has everything. And if I could rewatch a match, like that's the go-to, where it's like
Yeah.
this is just a really good match.
Mhm.
um what about you?
So my favorite, it's been my favorite since I saw it live in person. Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25, and I know that's a lot of people's favorite, but that's because it's the best match of all time. In my opinion,
It's
it's
really
just
good.
there's not
Yeah,
a single second that was wasted. Every single second meant something. The storytelling was just, exactly the way it needed to be. Every moment was just like breathtaking. I mean, just Undertaker diving over and almost hitting the cameraman and just landing on his head, that was hard to see. But
yeah,
like the way he just,
yeah.
got right back up and just kept pushing through, it was amazing. You don't even know time was flying. I remember being there in person. Now it's a little weird thing, but like whenever I go to wrestling shows and I go with my dad, like my dad, he loves wrestling, but he's just one of those guys that he goes to his show to relax and he sits on his chair and he leans back and he's watching the show. Something exciting happens. I stand up, and he's all right. He's not like unhealthy or anything. He just he just wants to relax. He's gonna stay on his chair. and everyone's standing, maybe, and then the moment ends, people sit back down, he sits back, he stays, he's on his chair the whole time. That was the only match I remember specifically thinking like, my dad is standing up next to me, you know like this.
Yeah.
There's a moment in that match where he's standing up and we're all just watching it, and I knew like that was just magic. Like the second Shawn Michaels kicked out of the tombstone and everyone's freaking out, and I'm looking at my dad and we're just like, what the heck, like those are memories that, like, I'm getting chills now, that, like, I'll never forget. And again, to me, I'm thinking like maybe it's because I'm there in person, that's my favorite match, but I also hear that a lot of people agree that it is. So I'm so happy that I've been there for that match.
Yeah, and I mean, even, a lot of moments like that still translate well at home. Like, I remember for WrestleMania 30, when it was like during this time when I actually found a few mutuals who did like
Mm-hmm.
wrestling, but like on a super casual level, like, let's all split WrestleMania or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were all like super talkative, during the show and all of
Yeah.
that. But then when Lesnar got the 3 count against Undertaker, literally everyone in the room just went silent for like a full minute.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, you could just feel, I'm getting goosebumps just
Yeah.
talking about it, but like you could just feel the
Mm-hmm.
energy of the room leave,
Yeah.
and just in complete awe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one was a crazy moment as well. I mean, watching that one live with my family too. Um, I think for a second favorite match, because like I have, like, it's a tie between the two. Shawn Michaels probably still up there, Shawn Michaels Undertaker, but another match that I love to mention is I don't know if you heard of these wrestlers, but Davey Richards and Michael Elgin. Have you ever heard of them?
I'm familiar with them, but I haven't
Mhm.
really seen their work.
So it was just one of those. It was my first time going to independent shows, my first weekend. So I flew out to Miami to go see WrestleMania because Cena with The Rock. Um, but what I really took away from that weekend was going to all the independent shows. I went to Ring of Honor, Dragon Gate USA, and all those shows. And one of the shows I went to was Ring of Honor. Now it's not like, I know Ring of Honor puts out good shows, and you know, I also know at that point they actually weren't in their heyday, because a lot of what I've seen is like mostly 2007 Ring of Honor, not so much 2012 Ring of Honor. But the main event was Michael Elgin versus Davey Richards, two guys I never heard of, two guys I don't know, two guys that usually when you get emotionally invested in a match, it's because you know of the backstory, it's because you know of everything that's going on. I'm going into this match completely blind, yet still being absolutely blown, my mind absolutely blown by like the storytelling and the action between the two wrestlers, and the near falls, and the submissions that you think it's going to end, and everyone is just so invested in it, and it was amazing. And that was like almost that equivalent of the Shawn Michaels Undertaker, where like all the near falls, and everyone's standing on their feet in that building. um I feel like that's a 5-star match. And again, it's another one of those cases where I looked up online, and a lot of people say it's a 5-star match, actually. And a lot of people
Yeah.
say it was one of Ring of Honor's best matches they ever put. And they put it on like, it was a very average show up until that point too. So obviously expectations weren't the highest going into it, but if you ever have the chance, like, absolutely go out of your way to go see that match. Because even rewatching it more recently, I was still just on my feet, on my couch, um, being blown away by that match again. That one's definitely
Yeah.
one of my favorites, for sure.
No, I'll look into that for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really gotta find find a way to watch some old Ring of Honor, just because there was so much I missed out on,
Hmm.
from the mid 2000s especially,
Hmm.
that I would love to go back and
I
take a look at.
I want to say they have a subscription similar to WWE Network. Almost
Yeah.
every wrestling organization has that now, and I haven't subscribed
Oh,
to them, but that's something that I want to also go back to and do. I know like High Spots has a bunch of PWG shows. Evolve and Dragon Gate they all had their WWN club, but now a lot of them, WWE bought Evolve, so now a lot of Evolve stuff are on
sure.
WWE Network. Um, Ring of Honor has this thing, New Japan, again, same on-demand service. You could just go on there and watch so many of their classic matches. Like they have everything. It's just like WWE Network, their whole catalog of shows. Another thing, I've actually been watching a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling shows and watching a lot of like Ricochet, Will Ospreay, Bandito, Kushida and Kenny Omega. A lot of their stuff on New Japan, like amazing stuff. Like there's a lot of the stuff that's also kind of getting me like really back into wrestling is watching a lot of their products as well. So it's been really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was almost like overload for me at the time because,
Mm-hmm.
there was just so much wrestling
Mm-hmm.
going on,
Mm-hmm.
like so much good wrestling. And at the time, if I wasn't watching, you know, current wrestling, I'd
Mm-hmm.
be catching up on old WWF, WB,
Mm-hmm.
all that,
Mm-hmm.
and watching pay-per-views from 2003 or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or 90, 98,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, that was like my other thing rather than, a lot of people at the time where it was like, I'm watching current wrestling and I'm watching independent wrestling.
Yeah.
Um, so I would love to go back and check that stuff out
Mm-hmm.
because I just hear nothing but great things,
Mm-hmm.
and I see the talent involved,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's my kind of wrestling, where you just have dudes who are legitimate and entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, and who can just tell stories and all that. Like it's right up my alley.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm. For sure. So how has video production impacted your life?
Video production in what way?
Well, just like let's say like the whole YouTube platform, let's say making your animation content, like has that like pushed you towards any kind of careers that you're looking towards, or has it just always been this side hobby project?
Yeah. So I never stopped loving animation. I think there were just so many other things that entered my life. But um, when I was in kind of the midst of animating, I kind of had like this split focus where it was like I want to go to college, you know, with a major in broadcast communications because that was like the main thing I was being like trained on in high school, and like a minor in animation. Like that was my ideal world.
Mm.
Um, and then I went to college, could not find one that was affordable and had an animation program. So that kind of fell off. And then I realized that I hated broadcast communications, and the reason that I even got as far as I did was because I loved acting. So I
Mm.
looked into that, and from there, midway through, I switched my major to theater, and I've actually been working as a professional actor since. Um, so it was just, and with theater especially, I mean, you have negative hours in the day to think about anything
Mm-hmm.
else. Um, it's an incredibly time consuming and taxing major to have in college.
Yeah.
Um, for many reasons, but so it was one of those things where I didn't have time for a hobby or whatever. So I mean, I even socially, aside from theater friends, I kind of fell off the face of the earth for like 5 years straight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was just, now that we have, this pandemic and, the quarantine, everything, I mean, I've lost all work until next spring at the earliest for my profession.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of professional gigs lined up in multiple states, and, like I was really, working my way up,
Mm-hmm.
and all that's out the window now. And I'm sure there will be ways to get back in.
Yeah.
I'm not scared that like it's all over for
Yeah.
per se, but it's given me time to retrospect and reflect, and have opportunities like this, um, and get back into Pokemon,
Oh yeah.
and actually have hobbies. Like
Mm-hmm.
one of the first major things that happened when I lost everything was I started kind of coming back into old hobbies and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that was fun, to and I think it was a much needed temporary break from my mind and my body after pulling countless all nighters and
Mm-hmm.
really messing up my sleep schedule and all these other things to kind
Yeah.
of mellow out a little bit for a
Oh
while.
yeah. Yeah.
And now I'm just kind of working, regular jobs until the world gets its shit together again.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, as far as like how animating has impacted those things, I think, a part of it is little tiny things have led to little tiny things. The high school I went to, for instance, was in part picked because they had an emphasis on things like graphic design and broadcast media and this and that. And so, being hardcore into animating, that was a selling point.
Hmm.
And through there, I got into broadcast media and stuff, which then kind of made me realize what I wanted to do outside. And so it was like little
Yeah.
decision. It was kind of like a domino effect,
Hmm.
where every little decision I made, wildly impacted the next decision and put me in a different, group of choices that would then, shoot me off somewhere else. So, I think it definitely impacted it. It's hard to say to what extent or amount.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I mean, I'm not so much of a in deep answer, but like I think what I got out of it is patience. Um, I think is 100%. I feel like my life, my character, my personality, I feel, really has actually been impacted by the work that I make, because it's kind of that transition of me being just your average Joe, your average Audie, to becoming this like content creator, and like we're a form of artist, I guess. Um, and just with the things with like dealing with all that stuff and working, I feel like I have this great I guess I'm very patient about a lot of things, like, anything even outside of video production, I guess. And that's what I kind of got out of just content creating. Um, you know, all that besides the fact that, also working with WWE and all that. I just think like it really, really helps us as like people, and this could go for any kind of hobby, really. Um, but I do feel like this is like a really big impact in like my life and a lot of our lives, even if it's much more subtle and it's not something that we realize. Like, even if I wasn't animating anymore and I wasn't doing anything wrestling related, I know that all the work I've done helped me, shape me as a person, going forward. As far as like, in my job, I want to do management and all that. That management position is something that I'm only striving for because of like being a moderator on WFigs.
Yeah.
Cause stuff like that, like I've always felt like a leader figure. And in my job, I am the leader figure. I already am in charge of when I'm on. So why not just put a title to it, Um it's just saying that that's always been with me. Um ARW Stop Motions did ask, in theater, what plays or shows have you done?
Oh gosh. I well in college I did a lot of shows. So I'll skip over that part and just focus on professionally. Um, I've done work in Chicago. I did some Shakespeare there. I did a world premiere show in Milwaukee from a newer playwright. That was super super awesome because I essentially got to kind of originate a role, which is just like such a freedom thing. You don't have an expectation, or you don't have someone telling you, oh, like you should do it like this person did it or whatever,
Yeah.
right? You really get to kind of pave the way. So that was a lot of fun. um, I I was going to have a gig this summer doing Hamlet and the complete works of William Shakespeare abridged, which is one of the funniest shows. But doing both of those shows for another company, yeah, I mean, I've kind of it's kind of been 50-50. I've like these days, like half the not these days, but before COVID, like half my work I would say was in like Shakespeare related stuff, and the other half was just like contemporary or newer plays. It's actually next year I have a contract if the world changes by then, but I have a show coming up next year where it's another new play and it's another world premiere. And it's so cool to do that kind of work.
Hmm.
And I love just constantly switching what I'm doing, and I think that's part of the reason I love acting is
Yeah.
that no two jobs are the same. I can't stand doing the same thing for too long.
Hmm.
And maybe that's like my ADD brain, but like I just you know I in an ideal world I would love to just like spend a quarter of my time acting and a quarter of my time animating and a quarter
Hmm.
of my time songwriting and a quarter of my time doing this,
Yeah.
and just that combined would be a thing. Like
Hmm.
I have a very freelance heart. um and I was kind of starting to hit those goals in a sense. There were brief times last year where all of my income was through acting, or times where like half of my income, or whatever, and I could kind of balance it by doing less of other work. you know um I got off the rails. What shows have I done? A lot. um but like half Shakespeare, half newer stuff usually.
Hmm. To follow up on that, ARW also asked, would you like to ever get into cinematic films rather than live plays, or do you prefer everything to be like live and live audience?
Yeah, I mean, so where I went to school, it was entirely theater focused.
Hmm.
They didn't really have like a film program necessarily, but in high school I did do a little bit of film work because they were just very technology based, and
Yeah.
so you'd have classes on just like basic filmography, and they'd always need actors, and I really enjoyed doing that, and I didn't put two and two together until later. um, I do really like film. I've done a tiny bit of film work, um, and I would absolutely love to do more of it. I don't necessarily have a preference of one or the other. I think it goes back down to like in an ideal world, I'd spend some time doing theater, some
Yeah.
time doing film, some time doing this, because they both have pros and cons. We're kind of in an interesting time right now. I've been getting a few jobs doing shows over Zoom, and what's super cool about that is it's kind of a combination between the two, where it's a lot more intimate and up close, like film would be, um, but you still have theatrical elements. And so that's really been growing on me and reminding me how much I love the film aspects of things.
Hmm.
But it's kind of at this point going where the work is, and I've been building up a reputation as a theater actor, and so I'm getting invited to more of that area of work. But I also do plan on moving eventually to a more film centric area. So I like to leave multiple options open.
Yeah.
I would never want to just do one or the other,
Yeah.
or use one as a stepping stone to the other. I think in an ideal world, I would just be doing both.
Hmm. Yeah. Um. So I know you don't do much YouTube anymore, but did you have any video regrets or any changes to a video you would want, or like YouTube in general?
Not a video regret necessarily, but I do have an animating regret.
Okay.
Um, and this will be my one piece of advice so far, for newer animators. Whatever you do, please get a table or something. Do not animate on the floor.
Mm,
Um, I I exclusively animated on the floor for
same.
my 6 years or whatever, and now every time I bend my knees, they crack.
Mm.
Like I like my knees. Like I I like to joke at you know oh, I have bad knees. Oh, what sport did you play? Oh, I did stop animation for 7 years, or whatever.
Yeah.
Because yeah, get a table. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it can mess up your knees and your back to be
Mhm.
animating on. for all that
Yeah,
time.
it's very painful. Yeah, my
Yeah,
entire
that,
ECW match was on the floor, the battle royale. The only work I really was doing on the table was Extreme Chaos. Everything else I had on the floor. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely feel you on
So
that one.
yeah, as far as regrets go, that's definitely what comes to mind.
Hmm.
As far as like video regrets, I I mean, I really wish I could have finished No Escape, but I just it I don't see where it would have fit into
Hmm.
everything else that was going on in my life. You
Yeah.
know, I just don't know how it would have gotten done in time,
Hmm.
looking back, unless I had massively adjusted priorities, where
Hmm.
instead of doing, 4 or 5 matches a month on wrestling figs
Hmm.
to, devote more time to animating matches and things like that. Once, because there was a time when, you could do it all at once,
Yeah.
right? And then I was kind of I was fighting the reality that I was going to have to start choosing one or the other.
Hmm.
Um, and I was still under the mindset of like, no, I can still do it all. And that's how you get situations like
Yeah.
that. But I do really wish I had a chance to finish that. Um, I mean, I had it all, not written, but like I knew where I wanted all the storylines to go. I knew what the end game was for all the
Yeah.
storylines. I knew what the events after that were going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one of those things where it just it didn't happen and life happened instead.
Mm-hmm.
um, so not a regret necessarily, because a regret implies there's something else I could have done instead to
Yeah.
prevent it, but like it's just kind of like a sad thing, I guess.
Hmm.
um, you know
Yeah. I mean, we know you were going to school and acting. But what really was like the point that you stopped animating? Like what was that turning point and why did it happen in that moment?
sure. So I mean, it really was a combination of things. One, entering college. And I mean, even when I started college, I was still animating a little bit because I hadn't joined theater yet, so I actually had some downtime, even with like work and school and everything. Um, but like once college started picking up, and once there was also a level of burnout where I had been animating at such a consistent pace for so long, where I just needed a break. And I think if I hadn't started doing theater and all that, like I'm sure there would have been room to come back. But also, at the time, like many of us, I was falling out of wrestling,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I'm falling out of wrestling. I've been animating for 6 or 7 years straight, and I have some burnout. I'm going to college. I'm in a new world. Um, all these things are happening at the same time,
Yeah.
right? And then on top of that, it was like, gosh, I want to say it was like only a couple months after my last animation too, Angus had passed away. And it was just like everything was just hitting at once, where it was like, not like as a this is a sign kind of thing, but
Hmm.
just after that it just didn't feel right anymore. It was like there's far too much going on in my life, both literally and internally. And there was just no room for me to continue. And by the time there could have been, I was far too deep in everything else to
Yeah.
even have the time to think about it.
Hmm.
I mean, there was a solid, at least a few years span where, I didn't even think about wrestling animation, let alone look it up or see what's going on or any of that. There was also a weird thing that happened around that time where I deleted my WrestleFigs account, um, as just kind of a letting go. I don't know why animators have that phase where they feel
Yeah.
like they have to delete shit, but
Yeah.
that was that was what happened. And then after a while, I was like, no, I shouldn't do that. I should come back. So I tried to, and the admins thought that I was like someone who was like a scammer on the like the classified section or whatever,
Yeah.
like the trading section. They got me like mixed up with someone, and so when I tried to come back, they're like, "No, clearly your account was deleted for a reason. You must have been one of those scammers," and they wouldn't let me back in.
Huh.
And I still don't know what like what the whole deal was. Eventually, I was able to make another account and just kind of so now I have a Heartbreak Cat account on
Mhm.
WrestleFakes that I occasionally like post on AEW threads. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, there was like a huge mix up with my main account because I deleted my account out of my own will and reason.
Yeah.
And I guess I got mixed up with someone.
Mhm.
I still don't know what happened exactly, but
Mhm.
yeah, so it was just, and that was in the midst of everything else that was going on. It was just so many things were happening at once.
Mhm.
I can't really give any one reason for why I stopped animating because I feel
Yeah.
like many things were factors.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And do you think in that moment, when you kind of come to the conclusion that you're stopping, did it feel more like you're taking a break, or did it actually feel like this was your animation retirement time?
That's that's true. I think at the time it felt like a break. 'Cause I think this was also kind of around the like a little after that. I was supposed to come back for like a one-off tag team match with you, and I no-showed for the first time in my life. Um,
I
after talking about how much
so I think it was that match, okay? Because I also scrolled up on our Twitter DMs, and I remember the last time we ever spoke. It was pretty much it was something along the lines of, "Hey, just letting you know I'm not turning in." And then I said something like, "Okay, no problem. What's up?" And then you're just like, "Oh, it's just not the time or something." And I'm like, "All right, don't worry about it." And just yeah, that was like 2014, from what I
yeah, that's
remember.
that. Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I might have even been 2015. I don't know, but
Mhm.
yeah, and I've always hated when people no show and all that. Like that
Mhm.
was just always. But it hit a point. I don't remember exactly the circumstances. I'd have to like
Mhm.
see the timestamp to see like
Mhm.
what was I exactly going through that time.
Mhm.
Um, it was one of those things where it was just I literally, if I was going to get something out, it wouldn't be of my quality, and I
Yeah.
just couldn't. I couldn't live with that.
Mhm.
Um, so I really regret that. Um, and that was the only time in my life I never I no showed an
Mhm.
event. I had my I kind of think of that as our crown jewel moment,
Yeah.
as DX, where it was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
where it was
makes
like,
sense.
oof, yeah, that
Oof,
was a
yeah.
bad match to come back to,
Mhm.
because I was pretty much retired. I was retired basically
Mhm.
when that happened.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, it would be nice to come back for a one-off just to erase the taste of that.
Yeah,
Um, it's
definitely.
like I mean,
Don't get our
I
hopes
have
up.
no ring. Yeah, I have no ring. I have no string. I had someone ask me recently on the animator Discord, like, what would it take for you to come back? And I was like, honestly, like, if you could get me some clear string and pay me with a few packs of Pokemon cards, let's go.
Mhm. Yeah, and everyone was going in
And
there like, "Yeah, let's do it."
yeah, and it would be a lot of fun, but it's one of those things where I wouldn't want to do it unless I know I could do it, which
Yeah.
like I would have to kind of practice on my own for a bit,
Mhm.
and say, can I actually get back to that quality, even just briefly?
Mhm.
Kind of in the way that a wrestler would be like, can
Yeah.
I actually physically get back into this?
There's definitely gonna be
Uh,
rust as someone who didn't animate for 3 or 4 years. And even
yeah,
before then, it was, like, single animation, so it really was, like, 5 years. Um,
yeah.
it definitely took me some time to feel like I got my rhythm back, but it's riding a bike. You never forget this, I feel. I feel like
And,
you'll be out there at the quality that you had before, honestly.
and honestly, I mean, there's a part of me that's like, there's a chance I could come back better, just in the sense that in having this chance to retrospect and have so much time away to look
Yeah.
back and say like, oh, you can pinpoint exactly what I should have done differently
Yeah.
in this, that, and the other
I
thing.
mean, you're a whole
You know,
different
just on an
person
individual.
from back then. You know, you've grown, you've
Yeah,
gone through, you know, your schooling and all that stuff. Again, it's not focusing on animation particularly, but because it grows you as a person, you're going to have a different perspective when you do animate or whatever you do.
yeah, yeah. And so, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I'm looking at like the few figures I have right now, and I'm just
Mhm.
like, what could I do with those, you know?
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't want to, you know, necessarily get anyone's hopes up because,
Mhm.
you know, any time in my life, you know, as an adult that I say, oh, I actually have some free time for once, you
Yeah.
know, something happens.
Mhm.
But, you know, it would be nice, you know, if it
Yeah.
could happen.
But yeah, I mean,
You know, never say never.
let me tell you, if you know you have a phone, you could do maybe one of those mobile
Yeah,
apps, right? Do one of those mobile apps. I'll send you string, and you're gonna get back on top of it, and we're gonna get the LK Angus
yeah,
back on board. Tag match, singles match, whatever you want. But I think
yeah,
it'll be really cool for everyone to have someone come back. I mean, we have you know, the wrestling and animators Discord right now. We have a couple of shows going on, a couple of matches that we're doing. It's still very early on, but I mean, I think what has been missing a bit was like that mix of legends, I guess. And you know, you are one
yeah,
yourself. Mikey's also coming back too. He's been animating for I think a little bit since this year as well too. I think he was kind of gone for a while, but he's there too. So I think that's like super awesome and just bringing the band back together. You know.
yeah. There was also kind of this thing when I was looking back, you know, at a few old threads and stuff
Hmm.
that, you know, because before the stream talked, before the stream started, I was talking about like how much you did for the community in the sense of like being like a real role of leadership and organization and motivation and stuff. And, you know, also looking back to how I kind of inadvertently started this aspect of like the entertainment side
Hmm.
where, you know, like animators would start like cutting promos on each other and stuff,
Hmm.
you know, and how I was really one of the first to like make that a thing.
Hmm.
um and it led to some bad things too, you know.
Hmm.
um
That's what we
people
try and
people started having some, yeah,
yeah.
people started having some real life beef, and that was not the intention. It was just supposed to be for fun.
So for
um
anyone who gets to this point in the video and wants a promo thread in the Wrestling Animations Discord, this is also why I'm very hesitant about it because people will
yeah,
get mad. At least the way I'm trying to do it right now. I mean, I remember the promos and people are still trying to cut promos in the general thread, and I mean, I'd let them, but they want their own thread for it. I think
yeah,
it's more funny when we're just shooting memes at each other because that's also what I kind of been doing with the, you know, with a couple of the other animators, and I think it's pretty funny that way too. You know, it's a more
yeah.
modern take on it.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah, and like I said, you know, definitely, you know, there were definitely negatives that came out of it as well. But I think, you know, just in combination with the attention and the drive that the forum was having, you know, having stuff like that to add, you know, kind of stakes and investments in things. And, you know, anytime we saw one of our fellow animators, you know, finally get the world title or whatever, you
Mhm.
know, there was like a legitimate sense of
Yeah,
accomplishment and
100%.
camaraderie and all that, you know.
Because they
I
didn't
was I
just
was
get that title by themselves. It's like we all did it, you know. Even though that person did,
yeah,
we did it together. You know, you fought that person at some point. He fought that person, and you know, we
yeah,
all worked together to climb that ladder.
yeah, you know, and because you know, not that I was looking for it, but I would, you know, there was a moment where I was like, man, how long was I actually, you know, losing against you before I finally got the title? And you know, I finally found that event in the event thread, and you know, there was just so many comments of like, wow, he finally did it, like congratulations, you know. And I mean that, you know, that felt good. You know, I was, yeah, sure, I was just a teenager who, you know, was typing on a message board, but like, you know, internally, like that felt amazing. Like that felt like something real, you know. Um, and so I guess as far as, you know, what did animating do? Like I think it also helped with a confidence kind of thing too, where it was like, you know, like I actually feel accomplished, or worthy, or whatever it is that you're looking for when you're young and introverted, and you know in a school that doesn't view you as one of the cool ones and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think there was definitely an aspect of that, um, and making me a more motivated and goal driven person too. Of like, I'm gonna keep fighting till I accomplish my goals.
Yeah, I think that was wonderfully said, because I think a lot of the things that I've mentioned beforehand before we got on here is just, you know, I think it's that motivation thing. Is it not all the animators are feeling very motivated? I know for some people the matches are new to them, and then to other people they've done a couple of matches in other forums, but I think they're missing
Yeah,
the point sometimes that it wasn't about just winning a title when you're better than everyone. It's about that journey, and it's not about, again, just you. It's everyone as a community. It's everyone, going in and making that show together and having these matches together. We had many animators, like you had mentioned, just pumping up 4 or 5 animations for a bunch of different matches just to get this show going, and we were all motivated by each other. And that's pretty much how it should be, I think, and now in today's day and age, with all the newer generation of animators, because I mean, they weren't there when we were around on WFigs, but they could still grow into something, you know?
100%. Yeah, I mean, literally none of us started off as perfect. We all
Mm-hmm.
started off as bad animators. But
Mm-hmm.
we all used each other as stepping stones and motivation, and we learned and we listened, to comments, and we really tried to work on ourselves, leaving detailed and critical yet generous comments, so that we'd all grow, not as a way to insult or to compare, but just as, hey, you've grown from this point to this point, here's something you can do to get from this point to this point. um, because we all know what it's like to be at the bottom. um, so I think with newer animators, don't take it personally. Like, we're we want to see you get better than us.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
that's part of the goal. you know um, we want to put someone over at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. I mean, we're not gonna just let it happen, but we want everyone to earn it and to get to that point.
Right,
Um, because
right.
I think, like, what I see a lot of, like, some things people were discussing, like, oh, I should just drop the world title, give other people a chance. Now that's a viable option, but at the same time, I feel like, but it's a world title, it'll kind of take away from the status of it being a world title. I'm not there to hold it just to gloat, saying that I'm the best. I'm there to hold it so someone can take it, you know. And when I
Yeah,
think back in the day with a lot of the other animators, like when I used to do, I don't know if you remember my 15 minutes of fame thing, similar to the John Morrison thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
John Morrison's thing in WWE was 15 minutes of fame. It's either he'll call out an open challenge, people would come out, and if they can beat him or survive for 15 minutes, they'll get a title match. So that's what I used to do. So I would have a open challenge on the forum, and just 15 minutes of fame. Who wants to challenge me for the title? They have to either beat me or tie me in votes, and they'll get a title match. Um, and people would always join. They would always first person to comment. They're in the match. Everyone was enthusiastic. Everyone wanted the challenge. It didn't matter. Animators of all level were joining. But now it's like, oh, I don't want to sign up for World Championship because I can't beat LKS. That's not how it should be. You guys should want to fight me so you can try and make the best animation you can. Because I think that's what a
Yeah,
lot of, like, what people had back then. They had that strive. Not that they know they can't beat Steve. It was that they want to fight Steve because they know it'll be a good match. I
yeah.
mean, what if wrestlers? I mean, we were all wrestlers, to the show. And people, when they fought the Shawn Michaelses and the Stone Colds and the Rocks and John Cena, it wasn't that they felt bad that they're fighting someone who's better than them. It's that they're fighting them, and so they almost have that honor of they had that match with that person as well. And
Right.
that's how I feel too. When I had the honor of being the man XX, I think, his last match at Animania. that was pretty cool for me that he asked me to be his last match. Um, it's stuff like that it really it's much more than just the wins or losses. It's the moments.
Yeah, I remember when Paul came back for like 2 seconds,
Yes.
and there was like nothing I wanted more than to have a match with him.
Hmm.
Obviously, it never happened, but like it would have been the coolest thing to me. And it was like I literally do not care if I win or lose. I just like want to make an animation against you and just
Hmm.
have fun. Um, and I think that was part of the fun.
Hmm. So do you have any hobbies or passions outside of animating and I mean even acting? Kind of been through that one.
Yeah, I mean, I play the guitar, I songwrite, stuff like that. I just got back into collecting Pokemon cards, and boy, is it addictive.
Hmm.
Um, Luckily, I came back at a perfect time because I started doing that. Like what was it like? Honestly, like right before um, COVID locked everything down,
Yeah.
and I got back in and I like bought a bunch of cards and stuff. And it was like right after that, once like the pandemic like really started getting like a foothold on things, the prices of like all Pokemon stuff went up like they like quadrupled in price.
Oh wow.
And so it was like my collection was already suddenly worth way more. And so it was like, oh cool, I can like sell a few things to buy some things or whatever
Huh.
versus
I
like, oh
I
god, what
never
am I
looked
doing?
into that. Maybe I have a lot of valuable stuff as well.
You should look into it. Like I had this, this one Charizard I bought for $50. And even that was like I was like, oh god, what am I doing? Like that's like the most expensive purchase I'll ever make, whatever. And currently it's worth 250.
Ooh.
Um, so just like stuff like that where it's like, what? I had a bunch of cards I bought for like $2 or $3 that like went up to 20, like it was ridiculous. But luckily it kind of saved my ass as far as like, okay, I'm not at least I'm not wasting my money on a hobby. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
at least I can say that this is like an asset now.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's wild. It's
Hmm.
super wild. I still don't get why it's happening, but it's
Hmm.
happening.
Yeah, people are getting the cards, I guess. I thought it would
Yeah.
have been the opposite because places aren't really hosting as many tournaments anymore and stores are closed, and I thought it would be hard to get new products, but I guess even the old products
Right.
shot up. Huh. It's really interesting.
I think I think part of it is like for people who are stuck at home or working from home or whatever, there's an aspect of like I can't go to the I like that need to like buy something,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, I'm like you're kind of reflecting and retrospecting, and you're like, man, I really like this thing, like I'm gonna buy it online or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and I think things just got crazy, and like the there's also this weird like Instagram nature to it where like people are like flexing their cards,
Hmm.
and there's a little bit of like
That was one thing I never
there's
mixed
a
with
little
my
bit of
YouTube. I like never posted
yeah,
any of
there's a
my
little bit of
YouTube
egotism.
stuff, or I never posted any of my Pokemon cards on like my YouTube and Instagram. I mean, I love the hobby, and I was so tempted to, like I started watching deck building videos and just all sorts of stuff, except unpacking videos. I never really watched unpacking or unboxing Pokemon cards, but
Yeah,
besides that, they're just like I was really into the Pokemon cards community for a bit, and I was really into it, and I almost made a second channel for it too, but just never did.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, luckily I've kind of starting to mellow out a little bit of buying. Like I'm like
Yeah.
I have enough. I'm gonna take it easy
Hmm.
for a while and just see what happens to my collection, and later on I'll sell some of it and hopefully break even or whatever. So I have a collection built, but I didn't really spend anything
Yeah.
on it because
Are
whatever.
are
That's
you
kind of how I justify it.
for Pokemon cards? Are you one of those like? collect one of every card type of person, or only get the cards you want, or mostly
Mostly
for
get
decks? Okay.
mostly get what I want, because as soon as you start trying to be a completionist about things, that's when it just
I
gets
did that for a couple of sets.
crazy.
um,
Yeah,
and then especially since I was doing both deck building and collecting, it wasn't just getting every card; it was getting four of every card, and so that started becoming
right,
a little bit too crazy. I had to kind of shift
right.
over
You know,
more to just what I wanted.
yeah, I do have like a binder section where I'm trying to get the first one 251 just in order, like
Mm,
Pokedex order. You know, not even to complete any sets, but just like if I can get like vintage cards of each of the
yeah.
first 251, I'll be pretty happy.
Hmm.
Not that there's anything wrong with Hoenn and beyond, but
Yeah.
I really like Kanto and Johto.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely the best generations. Although I would say Gen 5 was pretty awesome too, but Gen 1 and 2
Love
the
Gen 5.
best. Hmm.
Yeah, I Gen 5 is probably like my third favorite gen.
Yeah, actually, I agree. I agree with that one. So then, I guess during the pandemic, like, what activities have you been doing during the pandemic? Been Pokemon cards mostly?
Yeah, yeah. Um, kind of as I was saying, like as far as activities go, obviously I haven't been like seeing any friends or anything, so it's been more so like, um, you know, playing Pokemon cards online, for instance, and playing guitar here and there, and occasionally I'll get an acting gig through Zoom or whatever. Um, and then I had a teaching gig briefly through Zoom, and yeah, so that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Um, did buy a few wrestling action figures here and there.
Yeah. Um, which ones have you
Just in
gotten?
case.
Have you gotten any of the AEW figures?
No, I
Uh,
I one time when I was food shopping, I saw that they had the display up, and I was
yeah.
like, okay, and there was just nothing. It was all
Ah,
sold out.
yeah.
Like people are really just scooping them all up and trying to resell them.
Hmm.
Um, which is unfortunate. But
Yeah.
we're as people who have bought wrestling figures in the past, we know what that is like.
Yeah.
There's always going to be those people who are like,
Hmm.
"Oh, this is a limited release. I'm going to buy all of them." You know, um, Even on the forums when I was like looking at the thread of like, "Hey, have any of your stores gotten these figures yet?" Because I was curious. I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I would buy a couple AEW
Yeah.
figures." Um, and people would post pictures of like, "Yep, my store had it," and they would have like six of each in their picture, and I was like,
Mm.
"Well, that's why our stores don't."
Yeah.
Um, so it is unfortunate, and I
Hmm.
do have feelings about people who do that, but um, yeah, if I see them, I'd love to grab an Omega and Cody Rhodes, and later on Darby Allin, and stuff like that, but if I see it, but I'm not gonna go on the third market to buy it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people are already trying to charge 40, 50, $70 for a
Yeah.
figure, and it's like,
Yeah, that's
I'm not
why
doing it.
for me I just set my pre-order. I know it's more than in store MSRP and all that, but it's at least to guarantee what my spot on as getting a figure.
Exactly.
So, where do you see yourself in the future, and what kind of career path do you hope to take?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what happens in the world, um, in a variety of meanings, I think there are multiple potential paths in my future, but I'm still going to try to you know chase that acting dream, and that's I think still going to be the focus.
Hmm.
Um, but things could wildly change, and I'm a very uh, like I said, I'm a very freelance heart, and I'm never doing the same thing for too long. So my future could be entirely different than it is now, which is entirely different than I was 7
Yeah.
years ago, still animating.
Hmm.
So I I don't really see myself as the type who is going to be doing one thing for the rest of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like I have a lot of respect for people who do. It's just my brain won't do it, won't
Mm-hmm.
accept it. I'd rather have less money and continue to find things that impassion me,
Yeah.
than have more money and the opposite.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I learned from animating, where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I would rather be doing this and not making a lot, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, yeah.
So what happened to your arena? You still have your wrestling arena, your figures? Where is it at?
Yeah. There's a few random pieces of arena that I have somewhere. But everything else, like all of the cardboard setups I made, are long gone. I had to sell off like my real scale ring and my elimination chamber and my cage, Hell in a Cell, all that. Um, and most of my figures ended up being sold between the last 7 years, for various reasons at various times of my life financially. I have a few things left. As far as like vintage stuff, I still have this 3 pack from the Attitude Era of Mankind, Cactus Jack, and Dude Love, and it's signed by Mick Foley as all 3 characters. And that's a really nice piece. And then I have like a handful of Mattel figures, and that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and do you think we're gonna see any kind of content or videos from you in the future?
I wouldn't count on it. It's kind of like earlier where it's like it'd be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and who knows, maybe one day I'll just wake up with this spark and say, I'm gonna get down to it. I'm gonna find a table and I'm gonna grab a few cardboard boxes
Mm-hmm.
and somebody's gonna jump off of a cardboard box,
Yeah.
onto somebody. I think I have like 2 tables left or something,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll just see from there. But
Yeah. I mean, that's all you need: 2 figures and your imagination, really.
yeah, and that's the truth. You don't need a ring. You don't need any more than what you got.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, a lot of the things that I see from a lot of the animators is, I mean, they just make their own ring or they just use boxes, really. So
Yeah,
yeah, people get creative. Do you have any YouTube
especially back in the
stories?
day.
Hmm?
What's that?
I don't know. Continue.
I was just gonna say, especially like back in the day before they started making real scale rings, and
Hmm.
all you had were those like really, really tiny
Oh
ones,
yeah, this.
um, where like a suplex isn't even possible
Uh
because you're
huh.
just gonna hit the ropes.
Oh yeah.
Um, making rings was like super popular back then.
Mhm.
Everyone was at least trying.
Mhm.
I tried and failed, but like
Mhm.
everyone was trying.
Mhm.
And then finally we got some real scale rings.
Mhm.
But all you need is your imagination.
Yeah. I mean, I know like Mattel still sells their real scale ring, and then I think there's a store called Wrestling Superstore, and they have an authentic ring to get there as well. And it's pretty much like a 1-to-1, like from the Jax ring. Almost using
Awesome.
like the same kind of like turnbuckles and all that and material. So I mean, pretty cool.
DEW is making one too, right? Aren't they making like a real scale ring?
Yeah, yeah. So they have one that should be coming out pretty soon, or did come out. I'm not sure, but I know it comes with like a Kenny Omega figure. That should be pretty cool. I have one on order
Yeah,
too, so whenever that comes up, I'll probably make a stop motion with it.
yeah. No, that sounds great. Do you
So
have any of the AEW figures yet?
yeah, yeah.
How are they for animating?
So I've done 1 or 2 animations with them. I tried some hard moves, so can't really say for sure, but just feeling the articulation, I like it. I still think first impressions are I prefer the Mattel figures. But
Hmm.
these are definitely better than a lot of the other kind of figures that we've seen before. Like, I mean, I think they're better than Jack's figures. Um,
Sure.
I like the middle articulation right here and the whole chest piece itself. One thing I don't really like so
Yeah.
much is the arms. They're instead of just moving in the pace you want them, they're kind of snap. Like there's a point there, a point there,
Oh,
point there. So they're very I guess click on that. But you know, they have the knee joint,
sure.
they have an extra elbow joint. Oh no, no, you can see that one. Um
I also
and
heard that like people were having issues where like they'd be buying these figures and they would have like loose shoulders or loose ankles or something. You
yeah,
had any
oh
issues with
yeah.
that?
So yeah, I have on the Kenny Omega, I noticed the ankles are super loose. So hold on, over my face. Um
Yeah,
this piece turns really easily. Like just a little nudge will
sure.
move it all the way. Which makes it harder to stand as well.
Yeah.
So those are
I've been
like
hearing
some
about
things
that
like
like
that.
on a consistent basis.
Mm. But I mean, they're also very flexible, so you know, you're going for that, you know, that moonsault, I guess. Almost too much.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean they're pretty cool and I'm pretty excited to collect them. I think it's gonna be one of those things where they're gonna get better over time. Um, but I
oh,
think
for sure.
these are pretty good first lineups, especially the Young Bucks. I think I absolutely love these figures. These could be some of my new favorite figures, especially with like the pants and all the design they have on them. And little detail, they have the
Yeah, I have
side
no doubt
pieces.
that they'll get better.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm pretty excited. These are only two I've opened, and then I have more coming and shipping. Um, I pretty much have the
Awesome.
whole first lineup coming, and then the real scale ring. And I haven't placed my Series 2 pre-order yet, but something I want to do.
Are you getting the whole set or just a few?
I think the whole set as well. I think it's one of those things for me that I just, if it's a wrestler I don't have, I really want to at least have one of each guy. But it is getting pretty
Yeah.
hard to keep up with everything. Because same with wrestling
Yeah.
figures, I haven't been collecting for many years. I kind of been on I guess a shopping spree the last 2 months of trying to get figures I didn't have
Yeah.
before, and getting some of the newer stuff as well. And then you know with AEW figures coming out, it's almost like doubling what I'm trying to get. I'm at least trying to get like the beginning sets, and then maybe slow down from there after that.
Sure. Yeah.
Did you have
And like it's
any?
tricky too because like
Oh, go on.
oh, go on, it wasn't that important.
Okay, I was gonna say, did you have any YouTube stories you'd like to share from over the years, or like a favorite time period of being on YouTube, or even like you know slash W figs?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think in general that during the LKS era of, you know, W figs where, you know, we just, you know, we were fighting each other all year, and you know there was drama and excitement, and
Mm,
you know everyone was super active in the boards,
mm-hmm.
and you know I mean we were all supporting each other. You know, I mean it was a really invigorating time,
Mm.
um, and you know like that. I think that time period always holds a special place in my heart just
Oh yeah.
because you know my life otherwise was not going well.
Mm-hmm.
To short of it is. And so to have like things like that and genuine moments of anticipation and excitement and
Mm-hmm.
stakes, you know, or even just waiting for votes to come in, you know,
Yeah.
because there were so many times when, you know, it would usually be you and me where we would face and the votes would go back and forth.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it would just be like, it'd be like that good kind of stressful where it's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
man, you know, because it's like you're imagining like this wrestling match where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this person's about to win. Oh no, it's a near fall, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and it really had those kinds of feelings, you know, in my heart at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, you know, when you get invested in things like that, and then you know something happens and you finally win, you know, it's like you know that means so much more, even though you know it's just putting a PNG image into your account, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Definitely.
you know, but it means so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you assign that meaning to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, that's what we as humans do. You know, we assign meaning and importance to things,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. You know,
Mm-hmm.
is what we decide is meaningful. So yeah, I mean, as far as YouTube goes, I think I think it was nice to like get what was it TFW going, and you know, once I was like really pumping out videos consistently, and I had like you know fans, like legitimate
Yeah.
fans who were waiting for the next episode, and you know who were invested and stuff. It was nice to have that kind of impact on people. Um, and to you know respond to comments and to you know when people ask you for advice to help them out and you know it was nice to be seen as that you know to be seen as someone who was both good and helpful and you know it meant something you know
Yeah.
um, yeah I think that answers the question.
Yeah, definitely. Did you have any advice for any up and coming animators and YouTubers?
Yeah well the first one of course is please get a table. My knees hurt just thinking about it. But also, you know, don't you know, I don't know how to say this like politely, but like don't let it get to you. You know, like don't treat things as all or nothing situations. You know, because we all start off from a place of of innocence. We all start off from a place of inexperience, and you know the reason I re-uploaded some of my oldest animations after deleting them from shame, you know, was like just to remind people, you know, we all start off from here. So you don't have to feel bad for one, and two, you know, you will get better if you don't keep focusing on, you know, oh well I suck or whatever, right? You know, it's very easy to be defeatist and it's very easy to give up. You know, and it's very easy to go, well, I've been trying to do this for a month, so clearly I'll never be good, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because you know that doesn't do anyone any favors. You know, we all start off at a place, and literally you can only go upwards. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredibly difficult to move backwards. You know, in animation, unless you know you personally kind of give up or go through the motions or whatever. Um, you know, and so yeah, I guess those would be two major things. You know, I mean, of course, there are plenty of tips as far as like spacing and pace and you know stuff. You know, one more thing I will say that I think covers a few things is really you know you don't have to mimic or copy, but like really watch wrestling moves in slow motion. You know, or at least just like you know be thinking about what moves you're doing as far as you know I think for even for instance like people often will do moonsaults in this weird way where it's like well I might as well just grab a figure
Yeah.
um, where it's like you know the figure's going to do the moonsault and you know they're like going up like this and then as they come down they flip you know like that's just one example but like if you think about you know like how that physically works it doesn't like that's not how it goes like the momentum is coming from them springing their legs right
Yeah.
so like the hang time is them coming down the hang time isn't them going up in the air and then flip you know like just really thinking about uh, the logistics of it sometimes and you know watching things in slow motion especially if you're doing moves that are very aesthetically pleasing. You know, you have like the phenomenal forearm and you know Shawn Michaels elbow drop that have like very specific movements that make them interesting and flashy. That it's easy to miss if you're just going off of memory. You know,
Yeah.
um, or easy to ignore if you're trying to get the animation done quickly. You know, so it's one of those things where it's like really, pay attention to those things, and a lot of your questions will be answered, because it's easy to talk about spacing and about reactions
Yeah.
and about all of these things, but I think one thing that encompasses them all is remember your source material, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying to copy things, but there are so many creative things that can happen, but think about the logistics and think about you know everything that goes into a movement, or into a jump, or into because we use far more than our legs to jump,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
We use our arms, we use our stomachs, we use our heads, and
Yeah. Oh,
so
definitely.
I think it's easy to forget about some of those things, when you're animating, because I'd much rather see someone who I'd much rather see an animation that has all of these movements in it but is choppy, versus someone who, like, and we've all seen these. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
calling anyone out
Oh, yeah.
because I don't know who half these people are anymore, so I can't call anyone out. But
There you
like we've
go.
all seen animations where like they're super smooth, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like okay, well it's smooth, but like it's
Yeah.
it's not good. I would much rather see something where like each frame is like a different amount of
Oh,
like
yeah.
spreading the arms or whatever, and it ends up choppy. I don't care. Like I'd much rather see like actual movement than focusing on getting it smooth, because the
Mm-hmm.
smoothness will come later.
Yeah.
Like as you get more experience and as you understand things like that will all come later. What is much harder to learn is the basics. Um, so yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but that I think is legitimate advice that I would not only give to newer animators, but go back in time and remind myself,
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
because we all forget the basics sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We all focus on one thing or another, or we're so caught up with the string, that we're
Mm-hmm.
not remembering to move things or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Um,
just the details.
yeah,
Yeah. One person in the comments said that's why people who play with their figures are good at posing. Because yeah, I mean they're pretty much playing with their doing their moonsaults every day,
yeah,
so they they get it. Yeah.
100%, yeah.
Mhm. So who were some of your YouTube inspirations or animating inspirations?
Yeah. I think especially starting out, and as far as like the animator that gives me the most nostalgia, is Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I think it was called the Attitude Era. He had this animation compilation, and even like when the music starts, like I get goosebumps and I
Oh
feel
yeah.
nostalgic, because like that's just what I think of. Like it brings me back to that time period. Um, I think the reason he was such a big influence on me compared to everyone else was that he wasn't afraid to just take chances and do crazy weird shit. Once again, even if it was choppy, or even if it was even on the lesser smooth animations, like they were still I was still super invested, because like something interesting was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And you know I kind of comes back to the example of like the movements were there, right, versus focusing on being the smoothest thing in the world. um It's like even some of his running in his whole animations, it was just like literally like one frame, the legs would be there, and the next frame they'd be the
Yeah.
opposite. But like it had the tempo and the pace, and then when the
Uh-huh.
move actually happened, though, he put like the work into all the movements,
Yeah.
and so even if the running was bad, you still bought it, because like it still lived in that world.
Mm-hmm.
And it taught me a lot of lessons, both in letting that creativity
Mm-hmm.
flow, as well as what's most important. um so I always love looking back at Paul, but aside from stuff like that, I really was influenced by the people I was working with too. I mean, you and Stevo and Hardy Boys WWE, um and TTF Forever, and you know Euro, and all these people. I'd be working with them. Dead Bones, you know,
Man, Dead
and
Bones.
I miss Dead Bones.
Yeah.
But you'd be seen, each one would do this, interesting thing that you hadn't thought of, and I know I've had animations where people went, man, I never thought about that, or, whatever. And, we all inspired each other. We didn't take creativity as a threat. We took it as inspiration,
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so a lot of people inspired me, and in different ways, you know. Yeah, and I mean, as far as YouTube inspirations go, I'm trying to think outside of animating because it's kind of the same names if you just
Hmm.
focus on animating. But I'm trying to think like who I was really into at that time. It's just like so hard to
Yeah.
remember. I mean, there was this comedian I loved, this physical actor named Nathan Barnett, who I was a big fan of. Um, and I think that he was also a little bit of an influence for me as an actor, and just well, I think that's the other thing too is being creative as an actor also means not only working with creative people but like having a variety of influences who each teach you different things. I think in any art form that's you can't surround yourself in an echo chamber of the same stuff, otherwise you're not going to grow.
Yeah.
Even if something's yeah, I'm losing my train of thought, but I think I made a point.
Yeah, definitely. I know for me, well, at least the first wrestling animator I saw was Devin Boraz one. So I get that.
That name really rings a bell.
Yeah, it was pretty much like he even wasn't animating when I started. But his like last video was maybe late 2007, around the time that I had joined. Um, and same feeling, just rewatching one of the first videos I ever saw, and the second the music hits, it's like I get that nostalgia to
Yeah.
it. Um, and going back to like some of the videos you were mentioning, like Paul. Now, my memory is kind of like a little jarry at this one, but I remember there's one animation. Now it was either Paul or O'Kane, maybe one of the two. But do you remember like a bar fight stop motion? Very short,
I
but so you know what I'm talking about. You immediately know, right? No one's
yeah,
done something
that
like that. That was the
I
kind of creativity you were talking about, like them like actually trying stuff, and they made that whole bar scene, and they have a whole bunch of people, hitting each other with chairs in one corner, slapping each other in the other corner. One person's in the top, jumping off and doing like a moonsault or something, or maybe it was a senton. Um, but the fact that I remember that so vividly, and the second I said bar fight, and you knew what it was, like
yep,
that's the kind of work that I feel like we should all try and be doing. Like it's crazy. It's crazy memorable, and it was so unique for the time, and even for now, 13, 14 years later.
yeah, yeah. There's just and I think that goes back to the entertainment aspect of it is the smoothness and the fine details. They will come with practice. You can trust that. Um, but as far as like creativity and being able to be impulsive and have instincts to do things, like those are things that are less teachable.
Hmm.
And so play first,
Hmm.
and work later. Like I just because at the end of the day we all start off as a bunch of kids playing with our toys,
Yeah.
and so you can never lose that side of you.
Hmm.
I think as an animator, um, because I think once you do, then it gets too technical, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah. What do you want to see for the next generation of wrestling animators and content creators?
I want to see them be active. No,
Yeah.
I, I think we're in an interesting time period where things like NXT and AEW are have really brought in mainstream attention to independent wrestling, and I'm really excited to see what that could do to another generation of animators.
Mm.
Because before occasionally you'd have animators like you who would be watching those independent shows and learning new moves and stuff. But aside from that, a lot of vintage animation is mostly just remaking famous moments from WWE,
Mhm.
for instance. Um, so to kind of have this newer generation of style and things like that, I'm excited to see how that could influence another generation of animators to raise the bar or replace the bar entirely or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I don't know what expectations I would necessarily give. I just want to see. I like being surprised.
Yeah.
You know, um, I don't know what the next thing is, and I don't want to know.
Mhm.
I want to see it happen. Um, and don't be afraid to try things.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
So, do you
Like I
have?
remember the first time that like somebody decided to use an old CD case as
Oh
like
yeah.
a glass panel,
Mhm.
and it was just the coolest shit. It was like, oh man, why didn't I think of that?
Mhm.
You know, and remembering that like at the end of the day, the world is is your toolbox.
Mhm.
Why can't an animator go? I'm going to make a stipulation match and it's going to be like an independent, outlaw mud show Lego match and I can
Mhm.
literally use Legos for it, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, and I feel like there's still a lot of untapped potential um, that's just waiting to be explored.
Mhm. Definitely. Do you have a message to your fans, new or old, that has stuck with you after all this time, who remember the name the Heartbreak Cat?
I think just, and like I said, yesterday was like really the first time I got to look at a lot of my old videos in a while, but just seeing the occasional comment, of, oh, this brings me back to my childhood, or like this gives me nostalgia, you know, um, or even like the occasional new fan who comes out of nowhere. Um, 'Cause I've seen a few comments like that too, of people who have just randomly discovered my videos somehow, and are like, oh, I really like the storyline you had going on here with this, or on my Royal Rumble video, I had this elimination spot where Shelton's about to get eliminated, but he jumps all the way to the barricade, and someone's like, "Hey, WB copied this a couple years later."
Yeah.
Someone to comment in retrospect, um, and just stuff like that is just super cool. Just knowing that you've not made a difference necessarily, but like had an impact on someone,
Yeah.
or brightened their day, or gave them some nostalgia, were a part of someone's childhood, or
Mhm.
things like that. I it's a very it means a lot. It's also humbling, and it's just I appreciate
Yeah.
my fans who have been around back then, and who still occasionally will watch a video, or the new people who I can't do much for, but
Mhm.
it's nice that they've stopped by. I like to entertain, and I like to make people's day 0.5% better.
Yeah, definitely. I think like this is like one of the biggest things that I feel has been, impacting myself really, and is seeing all the people who join up with the streams and have been talking to me more recently. Now that I've kind of come back, and a lot of people they tell me that I don't really realize how many of them that I've impacted, and that's kind of like me forgetting why I was doing this in the first place, and always comparing us to wrestlers, but they go out there every night to entertain, to inspire people, and we're over here just doing the same, but just our own ways. And I guess I don't know. I mean, I know I get busy and I don't think about it, but to come back and hear that is, it motivates me because I'm a fan too. I'm that person waiting for Stevo to make his next part his video, even though it's not going to happen, it might not happen, but I'm that same fan, and for people to feel the same way about
Yeah.
my videos and your videos, it's really inspirational, and it's just crazy how we've gotten to that point, and we don't want to disappoint people. We're happy to have been a part of everyone's life, even if we didn't know them personally, because we have those people in our lives as well.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much um most of the main questions that I had. Um, didn't really worry
Sure.
about the runtime. We've been here for a good while. I know Captain McKay and I were here for about 2 hours as well. Um, but where can we find you before we get into maybe watching one of your videos? Where can we find you on social media? Um, where have you
Oh
been?
gosh. I mean, does YouTube even still have like private messages as a thing?
I don't even think they
Like they
do.
used to have that.
They don't have that
I don't.
anymore.
I mean, I will say I still sometimes get notifications for when people comment on my videos.
Hmm.
On the Heartbreak Cat, at least.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't really been able to access Angus for a while.
Hmm.
And sometimes I'll even respond to them, just out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Um, and you know, so I mean, I guess that's one way. But I mean, as far as social media goes, I don't know. I feel like it's either I have my animating YouTube accounts
Yeah.
or I have my personal me accounts. You know what? I say go on the Animators Discord.
Hmm.
Cheap plug.
There you go.
Um, I've just joined it myself as a way to catch up, and this is how I ended up here.
Hmm.
So if you wanted to contact me, I think that would be the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Actually, if you're a former fan or a new fan or whatever, and I'll respond to you within 3 business days.
Yeah.
um, because I there's a lot of things to keep track of these days.
One
But it's
person.
it's never anything personal. I
Oh
will
yeah.
say that.
Hmm.
I never ignore things.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Definitely. I mean, we've all just kind of had our distance or missed out on responding with someone. It's definitely
yeah,
happened. So, would you like to see some of your videos?
yeah. Let's go for it.
Let's see. What do we have here? Check out that Royal Rumble. It's been a while since I've seen it too.
This will be fun.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it, and it was like I also was really proud of like the very last match I made. It was like just like a random match between Rey Mysterio and Evan Bourne.
Mhm.
Like I was just really proud of like focusing on making something just like seem really authentic and kind of having this back and forth and a story and all that.
Mhm.
And it was just for fun, but like it also I think kind of made me feel good. I'm not interested necessarily in rewatching it right now, but like that was just something that came to mind based off of an earlier question.
Mhm.
Um, that's just I think it's one of those things where we keep learning, we keep growing, we keep getting better. And who knows, maybe one day there'll be something else on that channel out of nowhere.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I still have that. I guess I could upload that one animation I sent you that I forgot to put on YouTube that I made right before I
Oh
retired.
yeah.
Um, just to throw off the marks.
Mhm.
Um, it's actually a really good one too. What the hell was I thinking? Not uploading
Yeah, it was actually really awesome.
it. Yeah.
Gotta sit up. And there it is, right? Wait, there it is, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I'm not gonna put any audio due to copyright or whatever, but yeah, this is your
Of
Royal
course.
Rumble part 1. And
Yeah,
it's
this is
the
the
intro
intro
playing, right?
video where where
Mhm.
we used to steal some WWE audio and make our things seem more important.
Yeah.
I one of my favorite bits, and who knows who started this? It definitely wasn't me, you know. It
Mhm.
definitely wasn't you. But the whole idea of using VHS tapes as barricades, I think, is
Yeah.
just
Oh yeah.
one of the
I
funniest
think
and most
I
consistent bits.
I have to ask, like, what are on those tapes? What movies are
Yeah,
those that we're seeing there?
so it's mostly wrestling VHS tapes,
Okay. Okay. Well, you fit the theme with it, yeah.
um, or like random recordings.
Uh huh.
Um, like because I had like the VHS player hooked up to the TV.
Uh huh.
I feel old saying that, but like I could like record episodes of Raw or whatever if
Mhm.
I wanted to.
Mhm.
Um, I still have them somewhere, like just
Mhm.
random episodes of Raw from 2007 recorded,
Mhm.
and little fist bump between the Hardy Boys
Yeah.
before they. Um,
Oh man, that
yeah,
sequence is
like
so
just like
good.
episodes. Or
Mhm.
anytime I went to like see a show, I try to make sure that like one of my parents recorded it just in case I got on TV, but
Oh
like
yeah,
I was
I did the same.
gonna have
Mhm.
I was in the nosebleeds,
Mhm.
like
Mhm. Mm.
um but in my head I was like, oh maybe they'll show my really badly made sign, you know, as like a kid, you're like, oh I might get on TV.
Yeah.
Um so like yeah, random episodes of Raw and SmackDown, a few pay-per-views. Um
Yeah, I know for me, I had my LKS sign show up in the live broadcast of WrestleMania 25 during the national anthem. Remember everyone blowing up my phone
oh
about that?
nice.
And then
Yeah,
it got edited out by WWE because the person in front of me had like an inappropriate sign or something. So now
damn it.
yeah, I know, not on the DVD, not on the network, just that screenshot that one screenshot that I have that people were sending me. As far as my VHS tapes go, I pretty much have like think like Jurassic Park, Pokemon the first movie, the Goofy
Sure.
movie. Those were all around my arena. Oh, and you got that audience interaction going there too.
Yeah,
Little
I have I forgot about this. Listen, this wasn't even for like a storyline. I just wanted Jericho to have heat, so he just
Yeah.
knocks out a fan.
Remember, what was it, Path of Destruction? I had my Mr. Kennedy figure, being a super excited fan. He was always the one just jittering all over the place and trying to reach over
Yeah,
for the for to the wrestlers until like what was it? I think maybe like Matt Hardy got thrown into the crowd. Yeah, see, you could like really see just everyone moving during your animation. Is that Pepsi
yeah.
Man? Is that a
It's like a
Pep? What was
yeah, that's
that?
Pepsi Man.
Pepsi Man in the crowd? Shout out to Pepsi Man.
Not to be confused with the actual Pepsi Man.
Yeah.
But uh, one you know how I was talking about earlier how I didn't really get a chance to follow up with like independent stuff when I was
Yeah.
younger.
Mhm.
For some reason, the one independent promotion that I did keep up with was Kaiju Big Battle.
Oh yeah.
Um,
I've been to one of
and
the shows
so
live.
yeah, and so for my figure fed, I made like my own Kaiju Big Battle character,
Mhm.
who was just randomly in the promotion,
Mhm.
and I called him Pepsi Man, not realizing that there was actual Pepsi Man. Um, and so yeah, it was literally just a paper constructed, you know, thing with the Pepsi logo on the front,
Mhm.
and like that was just his gimmick. At one point, he won the cruiserweight championship
Oh my
um,
goodness. Yeah, I
in
totally
my
forgot about all this.
He never appeared on this show though. I should have had him in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. So, what does TFW stand for all the fans?
Total Figure Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Total Figure Wrestling. You know, it was like, you know, making up a federation name was like so hard back then because like any three letters you could think of put together, like somebody randomly had it on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it was like someone's like video game federation or their picture fed or
Mm-hmm.
their playing with action figures fed.
Mm-hmm.
It was like every single three letter, you know,
Mm-hmm.
combination was taken.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is just funny to think about.
You know, for me, the way I got LKS was just really kind of out of nowhere. I never thought about it. Got this
Oh yeah, an auto
scrolling
place. That's cool.
part 2. There you go. Yeah, I never really thought about a name like in my first 6 months of animating. I don't even know if I think I originally had LKS in the title. I think just at one point, because back then YouTube had YouTube streams, which were not like streaming live, but just they were more like chat rooms, and people
Yeah.
would go in there. They could chat in a little chat box, and then whatever video plays was playing for everybody at the same time. So if one person pauses it, pause for everyone. So people would go on there and just watch videos together. We'd always have like animators like just watching videos. This is early 2008, early 2008.
Yeah.
And I just remember one person coming in there and just calling me LKS because it was Loser Kings, I guess, and they just emphasized the S. And I was already kind of doing Loser King stop motion. I think that's what I was naming my titles. But yeah, at that point I was like, oh yeah, cool, call me LKS, and I just kind of changed all my videos after that and became LKS. Kind of how that started.
That's great. A few side notes.
Mm-hmm.
This is the section of the Royal Rumble where I have like four hardcore wrestlers enter in a row.
Mm-hmm.
If you can tell how inspired I was by the 2001 Royal Rumble VHS that I
Uh-huh.
watched religiously. The middle of the Rumble just kind of has a hardcore section where there's chairs and tables
Uh-huh.
and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also made a point to have Sabu botch um, just for the realism.
Yeah. Oh man, so much going on. You got that suplex while they're still fighting. Holy Terry Funk.
You know, that was actually going to lead somewhere, that feud, if
I
I'd
was
continued doing
I was gonna do
matches.
something similar too with because I had the Mick Foley Sabu. Terry Funk comes out and
Yeah.
congratulates them for the good match. It was a very sportsmanship type of thing. I was gonna eventually lead into a triple threat barbed wire match that I never end up doing. That would have been like the
That
follow
would have
up
been
death
great.
match.
Yeah.
Love that camera angle too.
Yeah. Trying to think of how long this actually took.
Do you remember how many pictures it was for the whole match?
Oh God.
A lot, right?
I think I think I had this like convention in my head of like, well, how am I gonna like keep track so that each entry is like coming out at a specific time, you know, as far as
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, if
Mm.
someone's paying attention too close to timing. And
Yeah.
so my idea, I think it was like every 300 or so pictures there would be an entry.
Uh-huh.
But what I realized is that that isn't a consistent form of measurement because some areas I speed up.
Yeah, I was gonna just
Um,
say that.
so it didn't quite work. I mean, no one's ever really pointed it out.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm gonna start pointing it out
um,
now.
also that ladder was set up for no reason.
For no
I don't
reason.
know.
Oh,
I don't know what
nice.
the intention was. Um, We have Mark Henry entering the Royal Rumble.
Mm-hmm. Pretty
At this
cool Mark
point, we
Henry
just have
figure.
like a ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone gets their
Saves.
Shawn Michaels catwalk spot.
Uh-huh. That Undertaker. Nice.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, that logo always bothered me on the bottom of the Jax figures for their
Yeah.
best of whatever series.
Yeah. Back when CM Punk had hair.
Yeah. Back when he was still in WWE. That Shawn Michaels or not Shawn
Spot that
Michaels, that
WWE.
yep. That Shelton Benjamin moment though.
Yeah.
Kind
The
of cool to
WWE stole a few years later with John
mhm.
Morrison.
Mhm. It's pretty cool to have like all these Ruthless Aggression figures and then the Deluxe Aggressions mixed in there. You have the
Yeah.
RVD in the
And that's the
beginning.
thing, like I always tried to avoid that for the most
Mhm.
part, unless it was like something like Undertaker, who's like gonna be taller anyway.
Mhm.
Um, because it was just like I hated the height
Oh
discrepancy.
yeah.
I think that's also why RVD got eliminated so quickly, was
Mhm.
because I hated having a deluxe aggression
Yeah.
figure
You
squaring
brought
off
him in
with.
there and you're like, yeah, never mind, you're going out.
Yeah.
Part 3
Oh
in a
God,
month.
Caesar.
Part 3 in a month. Nice.
Listen, you can't rush these things.
Should have
That was
had
actually
Pep.
a nice hat throw. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie.
Should have had a Pepsi Man wear the hat.
I should have.
I like all the signs we have. Used to have crowds with signs for our wrestling feuds. I don't see that much anymore from a lot of the newer
Yeah.
guys.
I don't get why I had so many heel signs in the audience.
Sounds like a rebellious teenager phase.
Yeah, seriously.
You know, fun fact, just gonna throw that out there. You know, I had friends back in high school, um, that stopped being my friend because I liked Randy Orton. That was a real
Oh
thing.
wow.
That was like like you would think that's like an elementary school thing. Like, oh, he likes a bad guy, he must be a bad person. This is what 14-year-olds thought.
I mean, I had one friend who was like that in the sense that like he refused to like any of the heels.
Uh huh.
Oh, nice stunner set by John
Yeah,
Morrison.
that was amazing.
But uh, he wouldn't like unfriend me over it. He would just like get mad if I liked a heel.
Hmm.
It's just like a big time mark. But I was like, listen, he's the only wrestling friend I've got.
Yeah, I think in my case they actually stopped talking to me and associated anyone who likes Randy Orton as a psychopath. So that's yeah. Man, a Royal Rumble is something that I never attempted, and it's definitely something that I want to attempt at some point. One of my
Yeah,
future goals. I think for me, if I can
yeah. I mean,
actually dedicate to doing this show, the Mystery Vortex, my next project will 100% be a Royal Rumble.
yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun. Like, I mean, of course, it was hard, but like
Mm-hmm.
it was just really cool to get to do all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. Um, I'm definitely glad I had a chance to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I didn't do it, maybe No Escape would have got finished. But
Mm-hmm.
also, like it
Mm-hmm.
was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I think not that it's easy, but I think like you could be so much more creative because every time a new person comes out, it's like making a whole new match. You just do that
Yeah,
30 times.
of Austin just kicking the crap out of Punk in the corner while all this was going on.
Oh man, wait, was that an elimination? Did that count?
Yeah, so the idea was like Undertaker caught him in the 619 and then took him out and threw him over.
It looked like he went through the middle rope. I'd say Rey
Yeah,
Mysterio is still in this. Oh, nice. That was a cool 30.
It hasn't aged as well because now like we're in the era where like number 30 has to be like a really huge name surprise. And like I just wanted to have like a cool surprise. But
I can't wait for mine because by the time I eventually ever hit a Royal Rumble, I'm gonna have all these independent stars that I used to watch in person as figures. I'm gonna have New Japan figures. I'm gonna have AEW figures. It's gonna be like a whole different thing where I won't even know who to pick for 30. You know?
Yeah. No, I'd really look forward to that if it comes through. Because I mean, it's you know, it's one thing to do a Royal Rumble with a bunch of guys who have been in Royal Rumbles, but to kind of have that flexibility of like, here's some AEW guys and here's some independent guys and here's some, you know, just kind of make something that's entirely original. You know, is super exciting.
That was always one of my favorite Jeff Hardy figures.
Oh yeah.
Different colored sleeves.
Yeah. Some people in the comments missed out on this moment a little bit because they're like, I don't get it. Jeff Hardy was already eliminated when he took out the Undertaker, but the idea was that like he was dangling and almost touching the floor.
Yeah.
But like the angle it was shot at was like not helpful to that story.
Yeah.
Like I should have had a different shot of like his feet like not quite touching the floor. And then for Orton, of course, to come out and finish the job, but
the ladder at least got used.
Yeah.
Look, Orton's just staring at Jeff Hardy in the background.
I never noticed that.
Well, at least he's there, not like he disappeared. I have an animation more recently that it just looks normal, and then I have a duct tape just randomly show up outside the ring.
Sure.
So I think it's a theme with most animators if they ever get to a point where they make a Royal Rumble, where their favorite two wrestlers will end up being the final two. I mean, I'm not saying spoilers for LKS Royal Rumble, but like I'm pretty sure that's probably how it's gonna go down. That's a pretty cool stunner.
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is obviously where it got lazy because the fans aren't doing shit. Well, the issue too is that like those like honestly part of the reason like the fans don't move is because like the VHS tapes are gonna fall over half the time if they do. Yeah, there's
commentary.
I cannot believe it.
Windows Movie Maker text, yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
Hey, old YouTube in the background.
Oh man, old YouTube.
Yeah, look at that.
Gotta check it out. What the heck is that?
Yeah, that. Old YouTube.
Yo, I had that set up. I had that set up, that huge browser you have going on right there. Oh man.
Isn't that wild?
Out of 5 stars, you rated your own video 5 stars.
Oh my god.
Man.
I forgot about the stars.
What the heck? This is old YouTube, but when they had this format, this was new YouTube, actually. We had one format before this, and I remember you were able to sign up in beta to have that layout. Oh man. Yeah, yeah. People in the comments saying LKS Royal Rumble possible winners: Shawn Michaels or Daniel Bryan. I mean, favorite wrestlers, right? Confirmed. Now I'm gonna have to swerve people, or say I'm gonna swerve people, and then
Oh,
still have them win.
to be fair, it is an absolute travesty that we've never seen Daniel Bryan enter at number one and win the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that's true. 100% true.
Like, if anyone deserved to be the third person to do that, like, it would have been him.
I feel like I should have an authority figure come in by like at number 31, just in the last second have man come out. This Rumble is now a 30-man person Rumble, and I don't know, have my heel Triple H come out. That would be kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun talking to you and getting to watch some of your old videos again. And hopefully
Yeah.
we could see more content or even an animation for the animation Discord.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the last, 48 hours and this conversation has inspired me to at least see what's up and maybe give it a shot.
Hmm.
Need to figure out how to get some kind of thing to hold my phone in place, but
Yeah, I mean,
sure I could bounce it up something.
I think I don't know, rubber bands and something sturdy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting prospect.
Hmm.
Um, who knows? Maybe we'll see something.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Well, hopefully we could get you back on the Wrestling Animators podcast. In the future, we might do again some sort of roundtable thing. We have Captain McKay's always down. I think MBG is going to be on the next show, and we'll see who else we can get on here. I'll do my best to try and hunt down
Great.
some of the old W Figs animators, and hopefully get them on here and get some nostalgia going.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a really pleasant, nostalgic experience to go through stuff like this and to chat with the person who's had the most impact on my time as an animator, one way or another.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's been a really great experience.
For sure. Well, it was good having you, and yeah, this is the end of our broadcast. Thanks for joining, everyone. You could just go down to the Wrestling Animators Discord. Link is in the description. We have the Heartbreak Cat in there, and a bunch of cool people who want to talk wrestling and animation. Yeah.
Yeah, and if there were any questions that you're watching this video a week later or whatever, I'll try to watch the comments and answer as I see them.
All right. Thanks for joining us. See you guys.
See ya.